And so once you want automation, when you want personal automation, you have to learn code. It's just that right now those tools are a little bit more for the technical person. I still think it's never been easier than before to get Claude running. And if you've seen anything of how I interact with this, I'm not coding. I'm talking to a chatbot that writes code for me. So I'll generate thousands of lines of code without having to personally code them. It's mostly like I'm delegating to coding agents on my behalf. I think we will all be doing that eventually in some capacity. So if you're ambitious, pick it up now when it's a little bit like early and you get that head start on it. Otherwise, take the most technical person you know and equip them with and invest in their coding. You'd be like, you should use some Claude Code. And like if you're a non-technical leader, empower your technical counterpart, your CTO, to be using these tools and to cascade that throughout. Because that is like unblocking them, putting them in a place where they're not afraid to learn and experiment and discover the value is the most important thing you can do.
I actually have directed a number of people non-technical to start Claude Code, and it's a little rough for the non-technical person. So for an executive, one of the things you can do is actually go get a technical person and say, look, these are the kinds of things I'd like. Set this up for me. Right, like do the vibe coding. Like sometimes some of the things I ask you is like, look, set up this vibe coding thing for me so I can start using it. Because then I'm getting that experience and that foresight into what being AI native can happen is, and I don't have to learn the current hard edges of vibe coding.
Exactly. I think, and also I can create an environment that will prevent you from even tripping over yourself and discovering the value prop more quickly, or like creating a custom agent for you that matters more to your use cases.
And that's also part of our earlier conversation with Zen AI is picture you know something. Like, yes, someone else knows how to do the vibe coding thing much better than you. Just like learn to partner with them the way you learn to partner with AI, advanced AI, and kind of say, okay, help me solve this problem. And then as you do that, that gets you into learning. Because by the way, of course, part of once you're down the road where you're beginning to see what the agent can do for you, then you're like, oh, now I want this too. Now I want this too. Because that's the way you learn it. You don't learn.
像感冒了还在那里，这个喝进去，
感冒。
不要喝进去。
Hi, welcome back to another quick guide. Today I'll teach you how to change controls and BlueStacks Fab. And it's literally an easy process, so make sure to watch until the end of the video to know how it's done. So gaming stuff. So the first step would be drag and drop controls to reposition them on the screen. This allows you to place controls and location that are convenient for customizing preferences. Common controls include keyboard keys. Now, other settings.
man. Oh, it's my phone. Let's play it. Yeah, like we can get this.
Now, to add a new control, choose the type of control you want to add. For example, mass click, gestures, add a sign, lead a cell key, or a button. Once you have customized controls to your liking, click on the save button to apply the changes. And that's all for now, folks. Hope you like and subscribe. Thank you.
Controls Editor on BlueStacks 5. How to edit game control. Open BlueStacks and launch menu. And open the Controls Editor. Here you see all the controls and keys assigned to them. Click on the control you want to edit, and press the desired key on your keyboard to assign. And when you are done, click on Save to apply the
What a damn code. I'm trying to play a game called Pokemon Unite. I naturally won't know it. No way. When do you go to sleep? I go to sleep. We got 7 hours. I went to sleep at 11. So 7 hours is not ideal because I have a cold, so I need maximum rest. But I woke up, I think like whenever I'm playing some damn game I'm addicted to, I will always wake up early. I don't know why. I think it's the addiction to the game that makes me wake up early, you know. And I get really addicted easily. I think also games is one of the only things that makes me like. So if there's like a game on the PC, it makes me get out of my bed earlier, quicker than I normally would. I don't know why. It's just like addiction. Whereas normally I just lay in bed. But if it's like on the PC. I think the most addicting one that I think is Pokemon is, even though it's not the best game, for me, I'm trying a different one called Pokemon Unite. So my thumb fucking hurt because normally in the Nintendo DS you have a joystick and you can press down, and like that joystick is like a cushion. But they make Pokemon Unite where you have to press down this fucking touchscreen, and it hurts my thumb. So I try to play it on the PC. There's only my left thumb. My other hand is fine. No, I think it's mainly addiction, man. There's literally no point me playing this game. But the difference is on PC I can record my video camera and the game at the same time. So there's an advantage. And if you have played, I've never played League of Legends, but it does work on the PC too. It's way bigger. The problem is the controls. This is against me, but is that not bad of game? It's kind of like Super Smash Bros. And apparently it's more similar to League of Legends than Dota, which I've never played any of them. It's kind of like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon and Smash Bros. I do put it on stream, but I don't get a lot of views. My lens holds down. I can switch over these guys. I put it on YouTube. I'm streaming on YouTube right now. The problem is the views, right? It's quite difficult to views. I'll record this. The advantage of playing this is you can record yourself and the game at the same time. Whereas mobile, I can record the game, not in my face. Yeah, I put it on. I can. Okay, so I use OBS, right? So I can record the video camera and the game at the same time. And then you can also record the clips. Oh yeah, I did that, but I think my problem is when I was playing the game, they keep making me do the verification thing. So I actually don't verify anything. And then they ban me. Yeah. To be honest, I don't think there's a huge market. I just do it because I can make it more than because it's a commercial opportunity. And it is somewhat fun at the same time. Playing against AI right now is easy. It's always easier to play against AI. Really? Have you ever played this? Because it's quite fun. It's not the best game ever. The problem is, no, it's very It's like Mixed Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. It's a team. They say it's a team-based game, but it's not very team. Very extremely team. It's on mobile too. It's not the most interesting. It's better than Pokemon. could put it on live studio. Problem is, I think it's stupid because they ban you when you verify. No, I have sent multiple times. It's because they want you to verify. You have to, you know, the capture thing that you're supposed to verify. The problem is, whenever I'm playing a game, I'm not looking at the fucking verifying screen. You know where you have to slide, drag this into position. It's kind of interesting to see on the laptop. The view is pretty good. Oh, it makes me do verification sometimes. Things like that. The other annoying thing is on the PC, it squishes screens. It's annoying. I don't want it to squish. But this is meant to be an Android, so on Nintendo Switch as well.
The final threat! You're on fire!
It's cool that they got it in because it shouldn't cost that much to get a guy to play well by 3, 2, 1. I might try. I can do it now. The problem is, I think I'm bad up on mobile.
You're on fire!
I think this game's more like the area Oh. Follow accounts. Oh. It says follow accounts I'm going to report. I did not follow them because it makes you start trying to sign in on this. I could follow them. They actually have a lot of subscribers. They have like 600,000 subscribers. It's like, I felt like my voice was actually one of my accounts can't use Nigeria. It's not too bad. It'll work out. Let's see. Because they banned me for not verifying, which is stupid. They used to ban you, so they ban you for like 1 day, and then it becomes 7 days, then another 7 days. So I think if you get banned like 3 times or something, or TikTok Live, you can still go on TikTok Live on mobile. It's just that they removed the access to Live Studio. Okay. Go live finally. Stupid. Oh, I finally can go live on my other account. Okay. Okay, go live on my other account. Pokemon. Okay. Go live on the other account. stole it.
We're on fire! Five, four, three, two, one. Time's up.
Oh no, we lost. No way. Snowball's pretty good. Playing the phone.戏的样子。
Final
harder on this fucking PC. I think it's easier to play on the phone. Let me try it.
Ready?
Ah, annoying. I'm gonna switch back to the phone. Looks really good to play on the PC.
Don't give up!
PvP is too competitive to be playing the controls. Yeah, let's switch back to the phone. It's so fucking annoying to keep losing. Yeah. With the fucking PC, man. Even though I can record on the PC, it's annoying.
You lose.
Okay. Play back on the phone. window.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Uncensored CMO. Now, my next guest I've been trying to land for some time. Scott Galloway is famously controversial and perhaps the most uncensored guest I've ever had on the show. There are so many things I wanted to ask Scott, and I know people listening have also sent in many questions to put to him as well. He's famous for his controversial opinions on marketing, like his brand Dead, for example, and also got lots of advice on life and business and success in general. He's also launching a new book, so I wanted to find out what that was all about and really get his tips for how to be successful. This episode is raw, it's uncensored, and it's full of real life lessons. You're really going to enjoy this one. Here it is. I've got the man himself, Prof G, on the show.
Thanks, brother.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
Good to have you.
Thanks, John.
I thought I'd start with something I read that you wrote, that it took you 25 years to have an overnight success.
Well, sure. So people come up to me now. I got 2 people stopped me on the way over here. I walked from my place. And Kara Swisher, my podcast co-host, is constantly saying, I made you famous. And I joke that it's really rewarding for me to have really rejuvenated her flailing career. But I would say, like, after working my ass off for, 25, 30 years, I'm an overnight success. So it's rewarding, but it should have happened earlier, boss.
Yeah, right. I mean, most people focus on the success. It's easy to, isn't it? You go, well, of course everyone's heard of you. But like, what were the most challenging moments or the biggest failures that led up to that moment? Because that's often what people don't talk about. That they should do.
We're going to need a bigger boat. I was very, I started investment banking. I didn't like it. I wasn't good at it. I was living with my mother at the age of 25. Didn't know what to do with my life. I started a lot of businesses. Most have failed. I've had a company go Chapter 11. I've been divorced. I've had pretty big personal failings. I've been shot in the fucking face a couple times, professionally and personally. I think my lowest or my most terrifying moment was when my first kid came along. It was 2008, and I kept doubling down on this company, and I never really understood the power of diversification. So I always thought, I'm smart, I'm good at what I do, I've always made a lot of money, but I always kept doubling down on one company, usually my company. And with this company in particular, Red Envelope, I had borrowed money against my stock to buy more stock. A good company, I thought was going to be great. And then 2008 came along, great financial recession. We had these weird things happen at the warehouse where we were sending 20,000 gifts for the holidays to the wrong addresses, which isn't good for business. And then I basically went from like financial security to less than zero in about 3 months. And then my kid had the poor judgment to come marching out of my girlfriend. I remember just thinking, I remember being in the delivery room and I felt so nauseous and just so awful. And I remember they said to me, just so you know, if you go down, we're not focused on you right now. And I remember thinking, it's not childbirth that's making me so nauseous. It's that I've like failed this kid on day one, that if I'd just been a little smarter, if I just put some money away in boring things, if I'd just been a little bit more disciplined, if I hadn't tried to live so large and impress strange people, I could have just been so much more mentally healthy and had such less anxiety. So that was a pretty big failure. I've had a lot of moments. I mean, I can't imagine anybody here not had a lot of failure in their life and not tragedy. It's just, if you love people, you're gonna have grief. If you want to be really successful, you're gonna have failure. So yeah, I've had my fair share, but I don't think I've necessarily had more than most people. But I think one of the keys to success is your ability to endure failure and rejection. Nothing great, professionally or personally, is going to happen unless you take an uncomfortable risk. Unless you're willing to approach strangers, unless you're willing to be persistent, unless you're willing to invest a lot in relationships, bring forgiveness, occasionally put your ego aside, endure rejection, and unless you're willing to kind of, I call it my core attribute as an entrepreneur is my willingness to get out a spoon and eat shit. I'm not afraid to call people. I'm not afraid to ask strangers for money. I'm not afraid to ask strangers to join the company and work for me. I'm not afraid to ask clients to be or strange companies to be clients. But that stuff's humiliating because most people say no. And so your ability to mourn and move on, most people really aren't willing to endure the pain of rejection, so they avoid big opportunities. It's embarrassing to ask strangers for money.
It is.
It's embarrassing to call potential clients. It's embarrassing to approach a stranger and express romantic interest. It's just all this stuff is easier to stay at home and, try and trade crypto and lose your money and go on YouPorn and pretend you have friendships on Reddit. It just, there's a reason romantic comedies are 2 hours, not 30 minutes. Real victory is enduring challenges and rejections and enjoying yourself. And I worry that, it's a bit of a word salad, but I worry that young people at the hands of the most talented, deep-pocketed organizations in the world are trying to convince them they can have a reasonable facsimile of life without the risks of leaving their house or engaging with individuals. But yeah, I've had a lot of low moments, and the learning there is, you think you're never going to make money. Again, I've thought that. You think that, okay, I'm not going to be able to take care of my kids. I've thought that. I've thought I'm never going to have like a really wonderful relationship. I've thought that. And at the time, it feels like these things. Like it's just truth. And what you realize is if you keep going, all those things can and will happen. So I love the saying, life isn't about what happens to you. It's about how you respond to what happens to you. And my superpower is I can get punched in the face and I can get back up. That's always been my kind of core competence.
Yeah. That was insight good to great. Well, great by choice, wasn't it? It was not that anyone has more or less bad luck. It's entirely down to how you respond to the bad times, respond to the good times that dictates the performance.
Yeah, luck is if you live long enough, luck is pretty symmetric. And the flip side is true too. You're never more prone to a really big, stupid mistake than after you've had a big win. When you pick NVIDIA and it goes up 12-fold and you start actually believing you know how to pick stocks. So you double down and you get really aggressive.
or you get promoted at work and you start thinking, I'm very good at this. You know, a lot of your success is not your fault. And so to have some humility when things go really well, but also to forgive yourself when things don't go well. You know, I think about 49% of what happens to you is your individual actions, but 51% is a function of the environment and things that are out of your control. So have some humility, but also forgive yourself when you screw up.
I met the England rugby coach a few years ago, and he had this fascinating mantra of be tough in victory and be gentle in defeat. So it was very similar insight, actually. He said, when the team won, he said, that's when I told them what they did wrong. And when they lost, I told them how good they were.
I like that. Yeah, I think that's a yeah. Yes, rugby. Go rugby.
So pivoting to the successes, because good to get into that, and asking for a friend on this one, but building your personal brand.
Yeah.
You know, you've managed to build quite a big business out of you, right?
Yep.
How do you scale yourself? You know, because you've only got 24 hours in the day. So how have you turned the sort of Scott Galloway Prof G brand into a business?
Well, people spend a lot of time, especially in marketing, think about how to position their company and what their company strengths are. But people oftentimes don't really lean into what is their point of differentiation. What is going to be your strategy? What are you good at? What is the market value that you're good at? And I figured out fairly early. It was more genetic, something I inherited from my father. I'm a good storyteller. I have a good gift of gab. I remember my father. You know, do you remember the first times you really registered emotion and nuance as a kid? I remember my dad's a handsome man with a Scottish accent. And I remember people just being so enraptured by him. And I remember thinking, but what he's saying makes no sense and it's not that interesting. And I recognized, oh, it's the accent and it's his charm and it's his body language. But I figured out early on, it's something I got from my father, is I'm a good storyteller. I communicate well. I can write well. I do good podcasts, speaking. I like this kind of stuff. So I leaned into that. I always knew I could make a good living doing this kind of stuff, writing newsletters, that kind of stuff. But my superpower is my ability to attract and retain good people. Because I could do one book every 3 or 4 years, make X dollars. I do a book every 18 months and I make a lot of money. And it's because I have really outstanding people who help scale what we do. And we have almost zero turnover at Prop G. People think it's me in a kitchen with a camcorder doodling and doing things. And they're like, you must work 8 hours a week. I'm like, no, I work 30 to 40 hours a week. But I have 12 very smart people who are really committed, who I treat really well. But yeah, greatness is in the agency of others. You can make a nice living doing something yourself, but if you want to make an exceptional living, you have to figure out a way to attract and retain good people. That's kind of the whole shooting match in terms of scale.
I like that phrase, greatness is an agency of others. Expand that a little bit. What do you mean by that, and how do you achieve that?
I got 6 things today. I don't even know where I'm going. My chief of staff, Mary Jean, is here. I have 2 podcasts today. I have producers putting data in front of me. I've got a publicist lining up all sorts of stuff for me. I've got lawyers reviewing my investment documents today. I've got, an editor a social media manager who will take clips from this and other things and put it out there. Now, this is a position of privilege because I now have the money to do these things. But good managers do a few things. One, they demonstrate excellence. I'm good at what I do, and I work pretty fairly hard. They hold people accountable. I have very straightforward conversations with people when they're not doing well. And they also demonstrate empathy. So what I found, one of the ways I matured as a manager was when I was younger, I thought everyone just wanted what I wanted. I wanted to be rich and awesome. That's all I wanted, right? I wanted a shit ton of money and for people to think I was awesome. And so I assumed everybody else wanted the exact same thing. And what you find is some people value, people value different things. Some people really want to manage other people. That's really important to them. They want to be a manager. Some people want their name in lights. They want to be in the newspaper. They want fame. Some people are totally focused. They're like, I'll work 80 hours a week. I'll give up everything. I'll have no relationships, shitty health. I just want to make a lot of money. Well, that's fine. But if you take the time to sort of figure out what people really want, like what's really important to them, and then they see you trying to deliver against that. Oh, we got a call from the New York Times. They want to quote. I'm going to let you take this because I know how meaningful it is for you to have some of that public airtime. Oh, you want to manage people? Okay, I'm going to put you in charge of this group. You just want money? Fine. I expect you to work your ass off and I'm going to pay you a lot. And that's okay because everyone around you sees you working this hard. It's okay to pay you more. But loyalty is a function of appreciation. And the fastest way to appreciate somebody is to figure out what they want and try and show, you can't always deliver against it, but try and show you're cognizant of it and you're making an effort to deliver against it. And I've tried to do that. As a younger man, I don't think I was a good manager. I think I'm getting better now. But trying to understand, what does this guy really want? Like what's important to him? And also creating a really nice collegial environment. It's interesting, the number one factor for retention, people think it's money, it's not. The greatest predictor of retention is whether the person has a friend at work. And so we were spending about $1 million on an office space a year, which made no sense. Ego, big fit, big office, check out what baller I am. And we gave it up in COVID. And now we don't spend all of that, but we spend most of it on, we have a policy at our company. If any 4 of them are together at the same time, they have my credit card. And that is either they're going to a Broadway show or Tulum, which they've done. As long as there's more than 4 of them, it's on me. And they have fun and they like each other. Everybody interviews everybody. They generally seem to get along and enjoy each other. That's not entirely possible when you get to hundreds of people. But when you have a small company, you can have a group of people that really enjoy each other. But I find that that's an incredible vehicle for retention. But I can do this. I can seem like I work much harder because of the, other people.
Yeah. People always remember how they feel, don't they? And experiences like that make people feel something, which brings me, you talked about Daniel Kahneman in a recent episode I was listening to. What impact has he had on you and how you think about how we behave?
He's had a lot of impact on me. It's funny, I have Yodas, and I didn't even realize this when I was younger. You don't need to sort through everything on your own. Find people you really admire, learn a lot about them, and make them sort of an invisible board of directors. Like I have a decent feel for what Muhammad Ali, I got really into Muhammad Ali. I have a decent feel for how he would approach decisions. I have a decent feel, like Madeleine Albright, I took an interest in her. I have a decent feel for how she would approach decisions. And I got really into Kahneman around economics and a few things. One, on a very tactical level. Daniel Kahneman has this thing called risk aversion theory. And basically, people would rather endure a series of small, definite, guaranteed losses than the prospect of a big loss. And they overestimate the likelihood of a big loss. That is the reason that the best business in the history of the West is insurance. Because they know on average there'll be, that 3 of these million houses will be wiped out by flood. So let's charge them enough that, there's a 1 in 100 chance it's $1 million to rebuild the house. Let's not charge them 10,000, let's charge them 30,000. And the fear of that catastrophic event and wanting to avert the big pain results in people willing to engage in what is the biggest ripoff in America, and that's insurance. So 7 years ago, this is strange, I canceled all my insurance, including my health insurance. And you think, oh, you're a bad citizen, right? And let me be clear, I'm not suggesting anyone cancel their health insurance because I'm privileged. I can afford any health scare. So why would I have health insurance? And between property, flood, I used to insure my vacations, health insurance for my family because I'm a narcissist and I wanted the best insurance, is about $55,000 a year for my company, which is my money because I own the company. And I found that about half the time we weren't getting reimbursed because we don't want to go in network, we want to go to the fancy doctors or whatever. And so in 7 years, $375,000 will buy a lot of healthcare. Now there's a chance one of us gets really sick and it would cost $1 million or $2 million. I can absorb that. So insurance is yet another transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich because people who are wealthy can afford to take these kinds of risks. But Kahneman that's one example. Tactically, I essentially canceled all my insurance. His other thing is the relationship between money and happiness. And he's done a lot of work on it. And what he found is that there is a relationship. We tell ourselves a myth that money can make you happy. That's bullshit. It can make you happy. Middle income people are happier than lower income. Higher income people are happier than middle income people. That's the bad news. The good news is that it tops out. Once you can afford housing, vacations, absorb a medical shock, take care of parents, in New York, that's probably about $1 million a year, but supposedly it's about 90 or 100 grand in most of America. Once you get to that point and you have a decent amount of savings, the incremental money adds very little happiness. It does go up slightly, but the returns are diminishing. And it's changed my policy on tax policy. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't tax, say, over 10 million in income, 70 or 80%, because the difference between making 10 million a year and 20 million a year for people blessed like that, it's not going to get you much. Whereas going from 40 to 60,000 through child tax credits or some sort of negative income tax, that can create a lot of happiness. So it's changed my views on social policy. He's changed my views on the way I approach risk. So yeah, he was a great mentor. I like wonky stuff. I look at Peter Drucker for my own personal life around fear and shaming. I look at Sam Harris. I got off of Twitter because I'm like, why am I on Twitter? And these people are so mean. These people ruin my weekend on a regular basis. So why am I here? But yeah, Kahneman influenced a lot of ways.
Yeah. Actually, one I reread after he passed away was that nothing is as important as you think it is in the moment you're thinking 100%. About it. And that's so true, isn't it? Is that you obsess about things, we get angry about things, and you don't realize they're not as important as you thought.
Well, slow and fast thinking. I've been thinking a lot about, just because this is uncensored, so I like to go to the really sensitive stuff that gets people angry. I've been thinking about what's happening at Columbia University and some of the protests on campus. And his seminal book was Thinking Slow and Fast. And the idea that we have really important instincts to think fast. A lion's coming at you, you know to run. Someone's threatening your family, you turn to violence. You make snap decisions, and that was key for survival. So we have this reptile brain that's just ready to defend, to strike. And there's two keys or two sensations to the survival of the species. One is that we need to continue to really enjoy sex. I think that's mostly taken care of. The second is that we need to be able to get pleasure from binding together to fend off a perceived threat or attack. And I think a lot of young people have a certain amount of rage and aren't having enough sex. And as a result, try and find common enemies. They go on the hunt for fake perpetrators or fake evil. And I just can't, I wish these kids would find other means of finding dopa hits than thinking some Jewish kid heading out of the library is really a threat to humanity. No, she's just headed to a manicure, boss. So try and figure out, slow your thinking, find other ways of getting a dopa hit, and really trying to imagine, isn't this person most likely just like you, trying to get an education, had no choice in being born Jewish or not Jewish, and you're being so aggressive and so hateful with your rhetoric, and you're intimidating these people. And I can promise as they get older and their thinking slows down, they're just going to think kind of, what the fuck was I thinking? Why would I be this hostile towards somebody? And so I think young people deserve a really wide berth. I'm a big fan of free speech, but at a minimum, I'm like, nothing says like you're wasting $120,000 of your parents' money, like showing up to a rally to support a murderous autocracy. And two, I think your grandkids, should they ever see this shit, and unfortunately young people have a camera following them around, which I think is bad, I think your grandkids are going to be really embarrassed that you were this unfeeling or weird, and seeing this 0.2% of the global population as a threat to your well-being. I can't grasp how these kids are not slowing their thinking down and being a little less hostile and being a little bit more graceful, so to speak.
So what role is social media playing? I know you've got some strong points of view on that. How is that fueling what we're seeing playing out at the moment?
Well, it speedballs it all, because the worst thing that happened probably to society the last 20 years is that Mark Andreessen unwittingly didn't build in micropayments to the first Netscape browser. What do I mean by that? If you saw a cool article in the Washington Post or a video clip on Fox, I'm trying to be balanced here, that you like, you should be able to really easily go, yeah, I'll pay 3 or 5 cents for that. Instead, they didn't have that technology, so it all became ad-supported. And since 1945 to about 1995, the general consensus in the marketing community was that sex sells. I'll have someone hot, and that'll get you to want to buy a Buick or wear Nikes, right? And then we discovered something, or the algorithms discovered, that there's something better than sex, and it's rage. And if I go on Twitter and I say, mRNA vaccines alter your DNA, it's guaranteed that hundreds of comments are going to come in. You're an idiot. You don't understand the biology. No, Scott is right. And by the way, I don't believe that. There are a few things I love more than vaccines. Anyone here has a vaccine? Here's my fucking arm. I will get 17 vaccines. I don't even need to know what it is. I love vaccines. I think they're a gift to humanity. Anyway, But anything really hateful or coarse, the algorithms elevate because people weigh in. And every additional engagement, every additional comment is another Nissan ad and more shareholder value for the company. So our most talented people working in the most well-resourced companies have a vested profit motive in enraging us, dividing us, and making our discourse more coarse. And what it has done is it's taken a population of people who are actually, America's bad, but it's the least bad place in the world. And it's given young people reasons to be really angry, and some of their reasons are justified. But 30% less people are speaking to their neighbors. 52% of Democrats are worried their kid's going to marry a Republican. Like when I was growing up and we were dating in our neighborhood, we didn't even know what political party. You wouldn't even think about talking about this shit on a date or to your neighbors. Or it was just, everything's become so coarse. And I think that if America were a horror movie, I think the call is coming from inside of the house. We don't like each other. And so social media has speedballed that. It has been a disaster for young people, just as it's been really hard on girls, just as they're coming into their years where they're thinking about social capital and wanting to be liked. We basically have the cafeteria following them around 24/7. And we're afraid because of politically correct doctrine to have an honest conversation around the difference between boys and girls. Because if you talk about the differences, people assume that you're not sympathetic to non-binary kids. And that's not true. Like, you can have empathy for everyone. Civil rights didn't hurt white people, gay marriage didn't hurt heteronormative marriage. But girls and boys, loosely speaking, are different, and they're predisposed to different types of behaviors. The reason I bring it up, boys bully physically and verbally, girls bully relationally. They wait, they're calculating, they're smart, and then they strike. And we put nuclear weapons in their hands in the form of smartphones. And they find someone who's weak or someone who's pissed them off, they plan, they wait, and then they go after them on social. And you have seen a dramatic uptick in self-harm and suicide, especially among young girls. And this happened, this is not an exaggeration, and this has happened a lot. 14-year-old teenage girl in the UK, Molly Richardson probably even heard about this, is really down, really depressed, bullied at school, goes into her room, starts talking about being bullied. The algorithms pick up on it, and she gets this exact email. Molly, here are some images on suicide we thought you might find interesting. And it's a picture of nooses, a picture of razors, and a picture of pills. And you know how the story ends, her parents go in the next morning and Molly's gone, right? Someone needs to go to fucking jail. It's just, how did we attach a profit motive to depressing and enraging young people? And I get depressed and upset with social sometimes. The algorithms, they give people incentive to go after each other and be really coarse and really mean. How does a 14-year-old modulate? There's absolutely no reason to have anyone under the age of 16 on social media. They have weaponized it, they've lied about it, they've deployed really charming people, Sheryl Sandberg, to pretend she gives a flying fuck about young people, and then depressed teen girls all over the world, to have an individual named Mark Zuckerberg who's done more damage to young people while making more money than anyone in the history of the planet. And then we have a feckless, ineffective leadership, average age 63, that's a cross between The Walking Dead and The Golden Girls, trying to regulate these technologies, 40 hearings on social media and impact on kids, zero legislation. Speaker Pelosi, when she had her first child, Castro declared martial law in Cuba, and 2/3 of households didn't have a color TV. But she really understands an 18-year-old girl getting extreme dieting tips on Instagram and what needs to be done. She really understands a 23-year-old male who's getting addicted to gambling apps. So I think we have minority rule, and I think we're very concerned with seniors and making sure wealthy people stay wealthy. But I think we've totally abandoned young people, and the fastest way to build a trillion-dollar company is to find a flaw in the species. So young men are more risk aggressive; they like gambling. Oh, girls are very sensitive about their social capital, so they become addicted to aesthetics and kind of their self-worth in the eyes of strangers. Think about what a place of perversion. I mean, downright perversion Instagram begins with. We're going to have algorithms that reward 15-year-old girls for posing in provocative, sexualized imagery such that her peers and strange men all over the world can evaluate her. I mean, doesn't that make a Catholic Church seem kind of upstanding? It's just like, this shit is just so weird and so perverted. And I think when we look back on this age, we're going to regret the weaponization of our elections, the coarsening of our discourse, the income inequality. But I think the thing we just won't believe, and I think it will change, is we're going to ask ourselves, how do we let this happen to our kids? And I think a lot of it is because our elected representatives don't understand these technologies. These companies are very smart. They've weaponized Washington. There's more lobbyists, full-time lobbyists in Washington who work full-time for Amazon than there are sitting U.S. senators. And they're very good at deploying these attract. It's already happening. Sam Altman, God, he's dreamy and thoughtful. Hush tones. I'm worried about AI, John. We really need to be thoughtful about this. And I'll care like I give a flying fuck about anything but money. And then I'll deploy a series of lobbyists to kill any legislation. We're being Sandberged again. And it's our fault. In America, to be rich is to be loved. So you can understand people making incremental bad decisions or rationalizations so they can have billions of dollars and be superstars. I'd like to be, that would be amazing. But we don't vote in place people who protect our children or have the skills to regulate these companies. There's more regulation in this mic than there is in all of big tech. There's been no regulation in big tech, which is just strange when you think about it. So I'm very worried about young people. I'm worried that we haven't paid any attention to the externalities of social media. Fossil fuels are a great thing. They produce carbon. We're concerned about it. Pesticides are a great thing. They produce terrible emissions, so we have an FDA to say you can't use these pesticides, right? What regulation is there converting attention to money at the expense of mostly children and mental health of America? So anyways, big tech has not been good. This big tech has speedballed a lot of the negative aspects of our society.
It's too embedded, isn't it, really, with too much vested interest in the economy. I wanted to move on, if I can, to marketing and obviously your role, clinical professor of marketing at NYU Stern. I heard this story. I just want to check that it was true. But did you kick out a student for being late? And then your response to it went viral?
Yeah, that was my first brush with fame.
Yeah, tell me about that. That sounds exciting. What a reason to get famous.
No, a kid walked into the class about 15 minutes in, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't allow people late in the class. And it was an uncomfortable moment, and then he walked out. And then he wrote me a diatribe saying, I was checking all the classes, I was auditing the classes, I was going to be in your class for 5 minutes and go to another one. And I said, okay, I get that, but I don't allow that. And I just wrote a response to him. I X'd out his name so people, and I said, this is in my next syllabus, I said, this is my late policy. And it got picked up by the media, and, you know, I had to go back and read it, make sure to see what I wrote. But yeah, that was my, you know, I'd say to young people, get the easy stuff right. I screwed up so much. I was late all the time, worked my ass off, and then I'd be late to a meeting. I mean, just get the easy stuff right. You know, show up, dress well. Anyone can dress well. Get your sister, a gay man. That's a hate crime now to say that. The gay men have better taste than straight men. They do. Get your mom. Straight men have something is wrong in their brain around fashion. Literally, they're like, oh, this Knicks tank top and a baseball cap on backwards. I'm killing it, right? Find somebody who has better taste than you to dress, especially when you're young. Show up on time. Don't speak your first 6 months of a job. Just listen. There's just basics. You know, shower. Like young men aren't showering, right? It's just some basics, right? Get the easy stuff right. And I speak from experience. I used to work so hard and I would get the easy stuff wrong. I wouldn't be kind sometimes, right? Say stupid shit or, you know, I just get the easy stuff right. And I think there's some basic blocking and tackling. The young have manners, follow up, you know, just basics. So many young people don't make the mistake of thinking anyone cares about your politics at work. That's the one I hate. You know, people will nod and call you a leader for complaining and then memo to self, next layoff, you're out of here. So get the basics, get the simple stuff right.
And you taught a lot of marketing to MBAs. What would you say is the most important skill for a marketer today that you might see lacking at the moment?
It's the most important. If I could give my kids any skill, it would be storytelling. The ability to take a concept, a narrative, and communicate it in a compelling way across mediums. Learn how to write, learn how to present, learn how to get up in front of it. I'm not suggesting you need to be a great presenter. You got to be able to present. So it can be very uncomfortable for people. So modulate, try and get to average. Learn how to write, learn how to, you know, text. Some people give great text. You know, those people that they can just in 8 words summarize the situation and they're funny. Find the medium you are great at. It might be something on social. You might find you're great on LinkedIn that you could post. I am really good in front of large crowds. I'm not good one-on-one. If these people were here, you would find me intense yet aloof, right? Or insecure yet aloof. So I very rarely go to meetings alone. I like to have a foil there. I'm not good on the phone, so I don't do important stuff on the phone. So it's important to figure out where is your strength. But storytelling is the key. The animals have instincts. They can communicate live, but they're not able to communicate to broader parts of the species. So they haven't evolved nearly as fast as us. We can write pictures on cave walls and say, this is when you plant the crops. I can communicate to you around how to get somewhere more efficiently, more effectively. So storytelling and an ability to communicate is something that's really valued in the species. That's why Mick Jagger gets to hang out with a 30-year-old ballerina, because he is an outstanding storyteller. So if you can communicate something in a compelling way to somebody, you can not only make a good living, you're going to have friends, you're going to have a broader selection set of mates than you deserve. So I don't know if it's, I remember 10 years ago, they were teaching Mandarin in high school. I mean, anyone using their Mandarin lately? When I took computer science in college, I think one of the stupidest things we did was replace civics class with computer science in high school. I don't know if we're going to use many programmers. We'll always need storytellers. We'll always need people who really understand how to communicate across different mediums. I think that's the key.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Now, I put out a few questions to the audience to say, if you're asking Scott one question, there was one question that overwhelmingly came back from everybody. So you're in Cannes, in front of probably the world's most celebrated brand builders, and you said the era of brand is dead.
Yeah.
What's the thought behind that?
Well, if you think about traditional brand building, from 1945 to kind of 1995 to the introduction of Google, the primary algorithm for creating shareholder value was have a mediocre product, a mediocre shoe, salty snack, car out of Detroit, and then sugary drink, and then wrap it in these amazing brand codes: youth, European elegance, American vigor, sex, paternal love, maternal love. We'll take 20 cents of peanut butter paste and turn it into $2 of maternal love because choosing moms choose Jif. And then we had these incredibly inexpensive vehicles of communication called broadcast medium, where 60 to 80% of the households every night were in one of 3 places: ABC, NBC, or CBS. So take that shitty car, convince it you're tough like a rock, and stuff the channel with it and print money. The Coca-Cola, you can dance like Michael Jackson without Pepsi. You know, oh, I drink Budweiser because aren't those frogs funny? And this was the primary means of creating irrational returns to shareholders. And then the ecosystem got so crowded with channels that the returns went way down. And also your social graph and word of mouth and Glassdoor said, okay, and I'll use the example of hotels. I travel a lot. I spent probably 50, 60% of my life on the road. And I always used to stay at the Four Seasons or the Mandarin Oriental. Why? Because someone else was paying, and they always deliver a 7 or an 8. And when I'm in Istanbul, I don't know where to stay. But now with my social graph and TripAdvisor and Google, I know that the Soho House in Istanbul is the old American Embassy, and it's great. Whereas the Chiltern Firehouse in London has the best room with a lot of hot young people who I like to hang out with. So the brand used to be this weapon of diligence. It was always a 7 or an 8, Four Seasons or Mandarin Oriental. But now I can find a lane for me with these new weapons of mass diligence called Google, TripAdvisor. So quite frankly, the brand has diminished in power, and it sounds very passé, but product is the new black again. If you have a truly better product, people will talk about it online and word will get out. So a lot of the capital has been taken out of marketing and has been reinvested in things like supply chain. Can I get you something within 48 hours for free? Can I produce programming for less than money that's really good? Squid Games, Parasite, Money Heist, and just, what do the companies that have added over $100 billion in value in the last decade have in common? They don't advertise. How much advertising does Netflix, Google, you know, OpenAI.
What about Amazon? Because I mean, the old Bezos quote of advertising is a tax on a poor product.
Yeah.
And now Amazon are probably one of the biggest advertisers in the world and one of the most invested in storytelling. Actually, back to your storytelling point.
I think they've taken a lot more money in advertising than they put out. They're one of the biggest groups is Amazon Media Group, where they advertise on their site. I don't see them actually as a percentage of their top line income. I can't think of the last Amazon commercial I saw. They buy a lot of keywords, but I think that all the big players don't spend that much. I think advertising kind of outs you as not getting it. And I think this is true of that. If you're having dinner with strangers all the time, it means you're selling an undifferentiated product. I was in the services business, and my life, when I really distilled, how do I make a living? I started a strategy firm when I was 26. I started an analytics business intelligence company when I was 40. And I thought, my life is renting my brain to old white guys. That's what I did. I developed these proxy father-son relationships with the CMO of a big company, and I said, I'm smarter than you. I'm going to rent you my brain, and I'm going to make you the CEO in 3 years or less. In exchange for this, you're going to give me $1 million to $2 million yearly consulting gigs so I can pay all these other people and make a lot more money than if I was just selling my own time. And I found it just exhausting. And what I say to people is, if you're constantly having dinner with strangers, it means you're selling an undifferentiated product. You know, Google was a 10x better product. You know, Tesla's a better product, even though I'm not a big fan of the owner. So all this money has been taken out of branding, traditional branding, gone into direct response, Facebook and Google, and into the product itself. Nobody invested in supply chain. Amazon came along and said, no, supply chain is the opportunity. And they made a staggering investment to get you anything you want within 48 hours for free. No one was thinking that way. Everyone else was just trying to lower the cost in supply chain. Netflix is supply chain, producing stuff in different markets. NVIDIA is supply chain. They said we're going to design a chip, we're not going to invest in these factories. Shein, which is the fastest growing apparel company in the world. No stores, no warehouses, no factories, no trucks, no stores. Software using AI to look at the 50,000 to 500,000 people that are on the site at any given time, tracking very closely their patterns and movements. And they go, okay, this top, we're going to need 1,700 of them. And then the software goes, what factory in the Philippines or in Vietnam can create 1,700 most efficiently? The order goes in, no humans. Order comes out, no humans. This is how we're getting it via air cargo to those addresses, no humans. All software, asset light supply chain model. Anyways, it really is an era of product and innovation again. And so the CMOs and marketers, we all love to be nostalgic and say, oh, advertising's coming back, and we give each other awards. Every day, there's less and less oxygen in the room. So if you're over the age of 40 and you're traditional branding, ride it out. If you're young and you can get out, get out. It's an industry in structural decline. When I was young, I ran a brand strategy firm. The players were IPG, Publicis, Omnicom. They were the masters of the world. Google and or Meta will lose the value of all three of those companies in any one trading day, or lose or gain it. So the sun has passed midday on traditional brand. Don Draper's been drawn and quartered. This notion you can have a mediocre product and instill it with great emotion and just sell a lot of it, that's done. That's over.
So I want to come on to talk about your new book, which comes out tomorrow. So we're recording this on Tuesday, comes out tomorrow. I want to start with the Marcus Aurelius quote, if I can, which I thought was fascinating. You have power over your mind, not events, which I thought was a fascinating place to start.
Yeah, life is about what happens to you. No, sorry. Life isn't about what happens to you. It's about how you respond to what happens to you.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's the key, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, not only that, I struggle with anger and depression. That probably is no surprise to any listeners or anyone who knows me. And you're in the past. Depression for me is in the past. I'll think about this pod, and I'll think about the one or two places I screwed up, and I'll get angry and upset, and I won't be able to let it go. I don't forgive myself. And the past is the most immutable thing ever. There's literally nothing you can do about it. Literally, and I can prove this. Nothing we can do about it. But if you're successful, and I'm also successful, you're constantly in the future, right? You're thinking about, okay, I'm name dropping right now because I'm desperate for your affirmation. I'm going on Bill Maher on Friday, and the shit going on at Columbia, I know he's going to want to talk about it. So already tonight, I'm going to text Jonathan Greenblatt, Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, and I'm going to ask for their thoughts on it so I can parrot it and sound smarter than I am. I'm already really thinking, I'm mostly here because I like you and I like your hair, but I'm mostly here, but I'm in the future.
Yeah.
And that's the fear. The fear is that you get to the end of your life, and if you're an atheist like I am, and I think that at some point I'll look into my son's eyes and know our life, our relationship's coming to an end. I believe that. You're like, okay, I was so much in the past, not forgiving myself. I was so much in the future because I wanted to be successful, that I was really never there. Like, did your life really happen? That's the fear, right? Were you never really there? So, life, if I could give myself anything or give young people something, it's like, okay, forgive yourself when things aren't going well. Recognize your life is how you respond to shit. When you're really upset, it's usually not about what happened to you. It's about whatever chemicals are running through your brain at that point. And just to ease up on yourself, forgive yourself, be nice, be good to yourself. And also occasionally try and just slow down. I think that's really the gift of kids, is they force you to be in the moment because they can be so disagreeable. But what is it that can put you in the moment? Like, what can just slow you down? I wish presence, which is sort of, I think, and just recognizing you can control your emotions, you can't control what happens to you. There's just so much of this that's just so random.
Yeah, that's huge, isn't it? Another thing that struck me in the book actually was the impact of compounding, which I've learned doing this podcast. It's been insane. Like when you repeat something, you learn from it and repeat it again, and keep at it over time. What you achieve this year compared to 5 years ago is just astonishingly different.
Yeah, look, the power of compound interest. If you had decided to get a shitty Android phone, which I realize is not appealing, right? Having an Android phone is sort of saying to the world, your life really hasn't panned out the way you'd hoped. But if you had taken all the money we spend on iPhones, I bought every iPhone. I buy every iPhone, automatic on the list. It cost, I think the first one was $1,500, last one was $2,400. Someone did an analysis and said, if you got a free phone, you can get a free phone. If you got a free phone and you take all the money you had invested in Apple phones and you bought Apple stock, you'd have $3 million right now.
Wow.
Because obviously Apple's gone insane, right? But what you don't realize as a young person is, how old are you, young man?
26.
Okay, when I was his
Just
age,
a podcast.
I could not imagine the flaw. One of the flaws in our species is that because we haven't lived beyond 35 for 98% of our time on this planet, we can't calibrate time. So you're going to be around you're probably going to be around another 80 years, which means if you save $100 a month, or let's call it $300 a month, which is boring, right? Because you're expecting to be a baller and have them promote you and sell a podcast for a lot of money. But just in case you don't, if you manage to get $300 a month into SPY, low cost index funds, and you didn't look at it for 50 years, not 50 years, 30 years, you're going to have millions of dollars. And hope this shit goes big, right? Hope you are a great DJ, hope you sell the next big, great novel. But just in case, if you can figure out a way to automatically save $300 so you never see it a month at the age of 26, I can guarantee you by the time you're my age, I think I'm older than you, you'll be a millionaire. So just in case shit doesn't work out, and I didn't have that maturity. I remember telling my friend when I was 24, I was putting $2,000 in this super lame thing called an IRA Roth. I'm like, if $2,000 means anything to me when I'm older, shoot me. And he's made a fraction of the money I've made. But he's a multimillionaire because he was that lame guy putting away money every month. It is amazing. 11% a year, which is what the S&P has done since 2008. Sounds really uninspiring. 11% a year? It's nothing. Big deal. That means every 21 years, your investment's going up 8-fold. So as I say in the book, the good news is I know how to get you rich. The bad news is the answer is slowly. But you want to lean into your advantage. Your advantage is time. So if you just have a little bit of discipline, one less Starbucks a day, round up on acorns, get a way to have forced savings so it comes out of your check and you never see it. Go into low-cost index funds. Don't believe anyone on CNBC. Alternative investments, hedge funds, people claim they know more. No one knows. My summary of the entire financial services community have been in economics. I'm around the brightest people in finances. No one has any fucking idea. That's the bad news. The good news is the markets in America over the long term are up and to the right. So you don't need to be a hero. Just save a little bit of money, play into your strength. You're going to have a lot of time on this planet, and a little bit of discipline, a tiny bit of sacrifice. Always save, never look at it, don't think about it, don't day trade, don't get near crypto. Jesus Christ. And try and live a little bit like a stoic. Recognize that people aren't as concerned with your shit as you are. Right? Get a Hyundai. Right? If you ever want to get a car, before you own a home, live in a very small, clean place near work. Double down on work. Be the guy that doesn't stay at the club and doesn't feel a need to signal with a bottle of Grey Goose. Go home, have a plan. By the way, that's really attractive to women. Actually having a plan. And you're going to end up at a stage in your life where flexibility and economic importance are really important. So, I think and also that the notion of compound interest, it goes for relationships too. Most people, when asked what the single relationship in their life is, they almost say, always it's their mother, right? Even if you don't like your mom, even if you don't get along with her, it's usually the singular relationship in your life if you have to identify one. And it's because of compound interest. Every day she made dozens of these little investments. Like my mom used to wake me up with a soft voice, like Scott, right? Totally concerned with my well-being, teaching me how to drive, all this shit, right? My dad was an owner. You wake up, or she wakes up 34 years later, and that relationship is single. She's a millionaire in my ass, right? She's been gone for a while. Like the wealth she accreted, making tiny investments every day. And so when you're young, and I didn't do this, a little act of kindness, checking in on people, texting people. You hear about a job opportunity, and you think of a friend, and you reach out to them. You tell someone you admire them. You hear their day on, whatever it is, just tiny little investments when you're young. I made some of those, and now those friendships are just so big, right? So I think compound interest, most people acknowledge it in finance. What they don't appreciate is how much little investments and relationships can pay off as you get older. I mean, the friends I had in college where we made little investments with each other are just these wonderful relationships now because of that compounding of little things we did for each other.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about the compound relationship point. That's really true. Because I think I found as my network has grown, good things just come, doesn't it? Because you multiply the number of people you reach and opportunities get created and knowledge gets shared. It's very impressive.
It's a great point because, and this is in the book, the difference between being economically secure and the people who are really wealthy is there's a myth. And the myth is kind of the Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren trope that rich people, billionaires crawled over other people to get wealthy. And what I found in the research is that actually wealthy people are generally speaking really good people. Because what you want is you want to be put in a room of opportunities without being in that room. And in order to be really wealthy, you have to collect allies along the way. You have to have people that think of you with opportunities, give you the benefit of the doubt. You also, wealth is a kind of what I call a full person project. And that is the fastest way to steal or to grasp or snatch financial insecurity from financial security is personal failings, a lack of character, divorce, which I've been through. I lost 60% of my net worth overnight. You split your assets and then you lose another 10% because you're supporting two households and you become a forced seller of assets, which is never a good idea. And also, show me a small or a medium-sized company that's doing really well and that all of a sudden kind of folds. I'll show you people at the top who are professionally divorcing. They're not getting along. So unless you're willing to bring generosity, forgiveness, empathy to your personal and your professional relationships, I don't think you're ever going to be that wealthy. I mean, some people are so fucking talented. Kanye can do whatever he wants. He's going to be fine. Assume you are not Kanye. Right? You want to bring, generally speaking, the millionaire next door is someone who values his personal relationships or her personal relationships, is a good person, and people want this person to win. So character really is, the most important part of being wealthy are things you can't control. When and where you're born. Being born in the 60s California, white heterosexual male gave me unfair advantage. But the things you can control, saving, compounding, focusing on your talent, and being a high character person, being a generous person, if you don't bring generosity and forgiveness to relationships, I think it's going to be very difficult to be wealthy because you can end up with personal and professional divorce from key relationships.
Thank you. What I'd love to do actually is bring some questions in at this point. So I think we're getting to the hour point. Shall I start?
just keeps going because they're not changing their approach.
Yep.
In this come to Jesus moment that I hope to God is going to happen, how do we manage the fact that really this tech and social money took over from, the kind of dying off of industrialization in America? We need the money. The tech people are the people who are supporting the people running for office. That's why nothing ever happens. Like, what has to break for us to get there?
So first off, I think big tech and their leadership are culpable, but the culprits are Congress and Senate, and to a greater extent, us. If we don't elect people that hold these companies accountable, we've had 40 hearings on social media endangered kids. We passed zero legislation, right? So like Snap got grief for their solar system, where basically you got to see where you were in importance to a friend. And it ended up really upsetting kids. Like, wait, this person doesn't care about me. I'm not even in their inner orbit. And I would imagine that people at Snap didn't see that happening. But when it happened, you canceled it. Most social media CEOs do not do that. They're like, unless it's outlawed, why would I put myself and my shareholders at a disadvantage when it's not law? So here's the bottom line. I genuinely believe nothing gets better until someone does a perp walk, because we can't come up with fines big enough. They have so many lawyers. They have an ability to reduce these fines. Facebook is violating a consent decree, lying to Congress to fine $5 billion. $5 billion. It's 9 weeks of cash flow. So if I put a parking meter in front of your house that costs $100 every 15 minutes, but the ticket was $100, but the ticket was 25. The meter costs $100 every 15 minutes, but the ticket was 25 cents. You'd break the law. You would just break the law. And the incentives, there's no algebra of deterrence. No one goes to jail. They fines are, it's like a gnat hitting a windshield. They make so much money. So until everyone has to be off their phone under the age of 16, until every social media company is subject to liability and someone can go to jail if they send out suicidal ideation emails, until everyone is subject to these penalties, to wait for their better angels to show up, you just don't hold your breath, folks. America becomes more like itself every day. To be rich in America is to be loved, to be able to take care of your kids, your parents, to have a broader selection set of mates. That is really appealing. So you will make incremental decisions that might have a really negative impact on the Commonwealth unless you are regulated. Ford would still be pouring mercury into the river if it wasn't outlawed, because if they weren't pouring mercury into the river, General Motors and Chrysler would have a cost advantage when they continue to do it. So the people really failing are us. Until we hold these companies accountable, until we pass laws that say, you realize, News Corp, Fox, they get fined $800 million for distributing and spreading false information about Dominion voting machines. That was a dumpster fire compared to the nuclear mushroom cloud of misinformation on Dominion that happened on Meta. But Meta passed this legislation that inoculates them from any liability. That makes no sense. So remove 230, elect people who are going to pass laws to hold these companies to the same level of accountability we hold any other industry. So I think it's up to the voters and our leadership to do what we've done in every industry and say, okay, if you knew that not putting airbags in this car and a steering shaft that doesn't collapse and windshields that are not shatterproof and people start dying everywhere, they get to sue you. You can't even do that with social media. They can't be sued. They have liability shields. They literally can't. There's almost nothing you can do to them. So I see us as at fault. I think we've got to put in place people who understand these technologies, can regulate them, and I think we need to restore the algebra of deterrence. Thank you for the question.
Hello.
Hi, Rob.
What does the agency of the future look like? If someone is young and creative and would normally go into advertising, marketing, whatever, what would they go into in the future if that's not necessarily what you see is going to be the case?
I think there's going to be a lot of services needed. I'd see agencies evolving to more, and for lack of a better term, supply chain and innovation and storytelling across new mediums, really helping companies work through issues around AI. I think there's going to be a ton of help, a ton of demand for smart people who offer outsourced service. The great thing, I used to pitch consulting, right? I was in your business. I started around strategy firms. I'm like, you can fire me more easily than you can fire an employee. And you're not sure if this brand thing, you buy into it or not, but give it a test. Hire us for a year. Ring fence your investment to $500,000, and if it doesn't work, you don't have an entire department to lay off, right? Companies trying to figure out AI. Companies trying to figure out storytelling on all these new mediums. I would imagine there's a lot of niche opportunities. It's just that a great business model was to come in with really attractive, compelling people to tell a story and then convince you to spend more and more on broadcast so they could take 8 to 12%. That was a really compelling business model, and I feel like a lot of the agency world is still clinging to that model, and I don't think it works. I think a business model, I would suggest retainers. We're smart people. We'll answer your 2 or 3 biggest problems around brand or media, and you're going to pay us 50, 100, 200 grand a month. And we're just going to be your department, but you're not going to have to pay us healthcare. We're easy to fire. You can swap us out in 2 years when we run out of ideas. We're not politically weaponized. We don't know what the pet projects are here. And I think that a lot of companies are going to want to outsource a lot of this. But I think there's so much insecurity around branding, storytelling, innovation, AI, supply chain, that I think it's going to be a great time to be in the services business. And then also people who are great, hire young people who are great athletes. Great thing about the services business is it's an incredible training. You have to be a great athlete. You have to be good with clients. You have to know how to manage a business. You have to be able to attract and retain people. The bad news is, I've always thought of it, unless you absolutely love it, it's a young person's game. It took a huge toll on me. I was roaming the planet. It took a huge, Samsung called. The CMO wants you to the board meeting in Seoul tomorrow. Can you be there? Sure, I can. Just ting, ting, ting. In the services business, I think it's a great training. I think it's a difficult way to have sustainable relationships. I don't know if you found that. You don't need to tell me, but I think it's a great time to be in the services business. I just think it's going to be a difficult time if you're banking on traditional media. And also, just very crudely, as far as media, your return on your human and financial capital will be inversely correlated to the screen that you're servicing. So you want to be in the business of creating media for a 50-meter screen called a movie theater? You better have rich parents. It's that business, all this majestic nostalgia around movies are back and Barbenheimer. Movie receipts are off 20% from 2019 this year. They were up 20% this year. They're down 20% from 2019. People don't go to, I mean, I go to the movies because I have kids, but I used to go to the movies twice a week. I used to see movies 4 and 5 times when I was a kid. I saw The Empire Strikes Back 7 times. And that was normal behavior. That is no longer the way. The content in your home is so amazing now. Next smaller screen, your TV, big business, growing a little bit on the whole, but tough, getting tougher. This thing, you can tell stories on this thing, champagne and cocaine. So whenever I hear a kid talking about creative or media, I'm like, what size screen are you producing content for? And if you want to be in the movie business, oh my gosh, that is a tough, tough business. When I meet movie producers, I'm like, oh, your spouse is rich, right? It's true. Or they're like amazingly talented, like crazy, freakishly talented, right? And when I tell young people is, surf where the waves are easy. Go to an industry that has an employment rate of more than 90%, right? I wanted to be an athlete. And I quickly, when I went to UCLA, I realized I was not in the 0.1%. So it was a blessing to be living with exceptional athletes and realize that I was mediocre at it. But here's the thing, in brand strategy, consulting, or analytics, you just need to be good. Not even great, just be good, and you can make a great living. So going into an industry that, I also think another graph, I have it this last day of my class at Stern, I have a graph. The correlation between the return on your investment in your career it's inversely correlated to how sexy the industry is. You want to open a members only club for artists in fashion industry? Oh my God, that sounds awesome. Expect to lose a lot of money. You want to be in food, fashion, the arts, anything that sounds remotely cool, it's overinvested, which drives down returns. You want to build a software scheduling platform for healthcare maintenance workers? Jesus Christ, that sounds awful. Ka-ching. Ka-ching. The most boring, non-romantic businesses offer the greatest return on invested capital. So if you want to go into a sexy industry, just be clear, you better be in the top 1%. SAG-AFTRA. It's not easy to get a SAG-AFTRA card. This is the union for actors and actresses. I guess they call them all actors now. 180,000 of the most talented people in the world. Hard to get that card. 87% will qualify for health insurance because they make less than $23,000 a year. You really want to be in that industry? You really want to be in that industry? I went to UCLA with the best athletes in the world, went to the Olympics, played professional baseball, professional basketball. Reggie Miller and Troy Aikman made a shit ton of money. Those were my classmates. I'm aging myself. Everyone else was calling me at 27 looking for a job. They went to the Olympics. They got a bronze medal. Great experience. No money in it. Like, and the sexier an industry. So, and by something super sexy on a big screen, you're fucked. So ROI inversely correlated to the size of the screen and how sexy an industry is. So if you're going to be an advertising your own agency, service the just worst sounding industries in the world. Be like the agency for like plumbing supplies or something.
Hi, Jasmine Ferreira, JP Morgan, which I'm laughing as I say it for your financial comments, but totally agree. Right now, I'm going back to the social media thing because it's just with the listeners, like it's just such a hot topic. We know it's not right today, but what can we as marketers do today to get it right without the regulation in place?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. Try and reward platforms to be hit, but it's so hard because you're a marketer. I can't stand Meta. I advertise on Meta. I have an online education company. I choose me over. I mean, it's very hard. You'd be doing your clients a disservice if you decided, oh, Alphabet radicalizes young men or Meta is depressing young teens, so we don't advertise for our clients. You'd be doing our clients a disservice because these are monopolies and they kind of control the ecosystem, right? So I don't know. I think it kind of. I was asked this question. I presented to Elliott a few days ago, which is one of the largest hedge funds. Many people pay my speaking fees now are these large hedge funds. By the way, I speak at JP Morgan all the time. Look, I think the best thing that JP Morgan can do for a big, successful financial services firm is to stop what I'll call certification-based hiring. What do I mean by that? Try and allocate 10, 20, 30% of the professional track positions in your department to kids who you develop what I call a skills-based assessment as opposed to a certification-based assessment. And that is we fetishize kids from elite universities. And at Morgan Stanley, and I imagine JP Morgan, it's very hard to get past security unless you went to an elite college for a professional track job. And the problem is when you decide you're only going to hire people from elite universities, you're never going to hire a single mother. You're going to hire very few Latinas. And there's some really good kids out there that just aren't cut out for college. Only 1/3 of kids get a traditional college degree. So I'm working with a hedge fund right now to come up with a skills-based assessment, and they just hired their first they've hired a woman who was a high school dropout that's like a math whiz. And they gave her a test, and she has great critical thinking. You know, took the GSE, whatever you call it. She dropped out of high school. She had an addiction problem. But she's very, very smart, and they think it's going to work out. So 10, 20, 30, 50% of jobs try and go through the effort of finding someone who maybe doesn't have an elite college degree who could potentially be successful, because I worry that me and my colleagues are creating a new caste system where the small number of people who graduate from elite colleges who are one of two things. They either have rich parents or they're freakishly remarkable at the age of 17. I mean, I don't know about you, any of you. I was not freakishly remarkable at 17, but UCLA had a 76% admissions rate. This year's going to be 9. And the tail that wags the dog for colleges is recruiters. So I think that JP Morgan, a company that's as powerful as JP Morgan, if they decide, they say we're moving to a skills-based assessments as opposed to a certification-based assessment, and we're going to try to make sure we hire from a lot of what I'll call the non-name brand schools and figure out a way to identify the best kids at those schools. I think that's the best way for an organization like JP Morgan, much less the marketing department, to kind of move society forward. Me and my colleagues, every morning we wake up and we look in the mirror and we ask ourselves the same question. How do I increase my compensation while reducing my accountability? And the way we have figured out how we can do that is by LVMHing colleges. Harvard has grown its endowment 5,000% in the last 4 years. It's increased its freshman class 4%. So we have these incendiary arguments over how many non-whites we let in or how many gay kids we let in. It's a total misdirect. It's not who we let in. The question should be how many, right? We should be letting in more trans kids, more non-white kids, more white kids from Appalachia, more conservative kids. We just need more. But until we get to that point, I think that big corporations that are amazing platforms, like someone gets a job at JP Morgan, I have this conversation all the time. They come into my office and they'll say, I got a job at JP Morgan, but I really want to start my own company. I'm like, don't be fucking stupid. Go to JP Morgan. These big companies, the American corporation is the greatest wealth builder in the history of mankind. They're huge platforms. They'll have that mole removed. They'll figure out a way to save money. They care about you. You can totally fuck up and they'll forgive you. They will invest for you. They are just amazing. You got to put up a lot of bullshit, right? People less smart than you will get promoted. You'll get an email from someone will tell you there's a new policy and you won't even know why or who decided, and you have to comply with it. But if you can put up with that and you're patient, you can get wealthy slowly. They'll invest in you. They're nice people. They try to be civic minded. They try to comply with the law and they try not to discriminate. They will give you, what's maternity leave at JP Morgan?
For example, in the UK, you can get up to 6 months now. So
okay. Dudes get 6 months paternity leave. Do you know what paternity leave was when I was at Morgan Stanley? It was, oh, you're not committed. Take the afternoon. That was paternity leave. Take the afternoon. That was literally, my mom was a secretary. They didn't have maternity leave. I mean, they had unpaid, but they didn't have maternity leave. So big corporations have come really far. I think that we romanticize entrepreneurship and we don't give big corporations the power or the prestige they deserve. The key is how big corporations start hiring people who haven't been fortunate enough to go to elite universities. That was a word salad, but I would say just make it your own personal in the department in JP Morgan. I've talked to Jamie about this. You got to hire more unremarkable kids. And when I say unremarkable, I mean, they didn't go to elite universities. Their parents aren't rich, right? Are they good kids? Are they smart? Do they test well? Whatever it might be. You know, I'd like to see corporate American universities be like the Navy SEALs. Anyone can go try out for the Navy SEALs. Anyone can show up day one for the Navy SEALs. Not everyone makes it, but everyone gets to show up. I think that's what college should be like. I mean, you're always gonna have elite colleges, but 76% when I applied, and now it's 9%. It's just weird. Anyways.
We're out of time, Scott, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Big round of applause. Thank you very much for listening or watching Uncensored CMO. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please do hit the subscribe button wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching, hit subscribe there as well. I'd also love to get a review. Reviews make a big difference on other people discovering the show, so please do leave a review wherever you get your podcast. If you want to contact me, you can do. I'm over on X at Uncensored CMO or on LinkedIn, where I'm under my own name, John Evans. Thanks for listening and watching. I'll see you next time.
75% of women say that economic viability is a key criteria in a mate. 25% of men. Men don't care what women are doing professionally. And by the way, that's a problem in itself. But if you're not economically viable as a man, you're kind of off the dating market. And in addition, women are choosier. I say this at conferences. I'll be in a conference with 500 people. I'm like, if there's alcohol involved, the majority of the men would sleep with the majority of the women in this room. The majority of the women would sleep with none of the men. When you have online dating, the women can apply their much finer filters and say, I'm just not interested.
So this video that came up on my feed, or actually, I think someone sent it to me actually, was you talking about this idea of passion. People shouldn't follow their passion and do things that are boring, or boring is sexy, or I don't remember the way you said it. But it was so refreshing because you only always hear people, especially on like social media nonsense, like follow your passion, like, you know, follow it and you're going to be fine. So because you were contrary, which I, by the way, agree with, it stood out to me. And that's how I became kind of
75% of women say that economic viability is a key criteria in a mate. 25% of men. Men don't care what women are doing professionally. And by the way, that's a problem in itself. But if you're not economically viable as a man, you're kind of off the dating market. And in addition, women are choosier. I say this at conferences. I'll be in a conference with 500 people. I'm like, if there's alcohol involved, the majority of the men would sleep with the majority of the women in this room. The majority of the women would sleep with none of the men. When you have online dating, the women can apply their much finer filters and say, I'm just not interested.
So this video that came up on my feed, or actually, I think someone sent it to me actually, was you talking about this idea of passion. People shouldn't follow their passion and do things that are boring, or boring is sexy, or I don't remember the way you said it. But it was so refreshing because you only always hear people, especially on like social media nonsense, like follow your passion, like, you know, follow it and you're going to be fine. So because you were contrary, which I, by the way, agree with, it stood out to me. And that's how I became kind of obsessed with all your other stuff.
Thanks for that. And when someone tells you that, the only thing you know is that the person telling you that is already rich.
Yep.
And the person telling you to follow your passion made their billions in iron ore smelting. What I found is you want to find your job in your 20s is to workshop your life, try stuff, have a kitchen cabinet of people, and if you're blessed to find something you're good at, and more importantly, something you're good at that people will pay you for. I thought at one point in my life for about 2 weeks, I thought, oh, I'd like to be a professional athlete. And then freshman year tryouts at UCLA disavowed me of any delusions around that. And that was a blessing, because figuring out what you're not going to do is important. But ideally, find something you like that has 90+% employment rate, which things like acting, modeling, sports do not have. They have like a 2% employment rate. And then commit to becoming great at it. And and that requires a certain level of grit, bullshit, injustice, perseverance. And once you become great at tax law, for example, and how many 8-year-olds say I want to grow up to be a tax lawyer? None. But the best tax lawyers enjoy their work, have intense camaraderie, respect. They get to fly private. They have a larger selection set of mates than they deserve, and they get the admiration of others, and can have a really nice living and get to take care of their kids and their parents. And all of those wonderful things make them passionate about tax law. So if you find something you're good at and you start making money at it, the passion will follow. So be a DJ on the weekends. Play in a soccer league, but find something you're good at that people will pay you for, and the accoutrements surrounding it will make you passionate about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's why when I saw the video, it was a very refreshing, number one. And then when I went on a deep dive with all your other stuff, I found you're very honest. Then I read the book, one of your previous books. I just read your Adrift, which is your new one. We'll get into after, but The Algebra of Happiness, which I really loved. And you were very, again, super honest, but you were not exactly a great student. You kind of were a jerk. You were very much like, here I am, this is what it is. I'm curious about how you kind of evolved into someone now that when I watch your stuff and see your interviews, you seem super evolved and thoughtful and, just different than what I read how you were for that book that you wrote like years ago about how you began. So can you kind of just start with how you became this entrepreneur, how you became this professor at NYU, like just your backstory a little bit so people know who you are?
You're being generous.
I'm not.
The evolution of going from asshole to someone who's less of an asshole.
See?
Look, there's the things that I think people relate to. The seminal moments in your life that really impact you are the most basic. The first was involved debt. My mother raised me. I was raised by a single mother. I was a secretary. Our household income was never more than $40,000. I was a Pell Grant kid. And she was a light of my life. And then when she got sick and died, when someone you love immensely dies, and someone who loves you immensely, it just the harshness and reality of life, which up until that time, many of us never experienced. Youth is mostly about Star Wars and prom and, getting your driver's license. It's pretty joyous usually for the most, if you're fortunate, if you kind of call it the upper median of childhood in America. And then 25 to 45 is what I call the shit gets real period of your life. And when you lose someone you love, especially someone who was as meaningful to me as my mom, there's just a certain reality check and a harshness that, wow, I never knew life could be so harsh. And it creates, though, there's real benefits from it. It creates an appreciation for the finite nature of life. It makes you grow up and realize that you have to take account of your blessings and that it's easy to feel sorry for yourself, but as long as you have health, you're doing really well, that you should treasure your relationships. If you're feeling affection and regard for people and love for them, you should express it and you should act on it because they're not going to be around forever. So that was kind of the first quote unquote grow up moment for me. And I always say that was the first thing I did right in my life. Everything I'd done was for me. I went to UCLA because I didn't know what else to do and I thought it would be a lot of fun. I got a job in investment banking because I thought it would impress my mom and strange women. I went to business school because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like the decision to kind of be there for my mom, I actually ended up moving in with my mom for about 8 months, was the first thing I didn't do for me, and it was kind of the first right thing I did. And that process, you just grow up, I think, when you lose somebody. And then the second thing is on the other side of the life spectrum is when my first child came marching out of my girlfriend. It just fucking freaked me out. I wasn't ready for kids. I didn't want kids. And I remember sitting there in that kind of wondrous moment that you're supposed to have. I was so nauseous I couldn't stand. And the nausea wasn't a function of how physically uncomfortable or the childbirth itself. It was the recognition that at the age of 40, I didn't have enough money. And it was terrifying and disappointing for me. I lived in New York. I had my first kid. I had my girlfriend, who's wonderful, but younger than me, a little naive, I think, about what's required to raise a family in New York. And up until that point, I'd had a lot of success, but I'd always sort of doubled down thinking I'm a master of the universe, I'll start another company, and I was kind of dumb around not putting enough money aside. And then the great financial recession hit in 2008, and I just got run over economically. And this kid coming along, it's the first time in your life you recognize it's not all about you. I always knew when it was just me, I could make enough money, I could find enough interesting things to do with my life, find enough interesting friends to live a nice life. And all of a sudden, this cosmic responsibility that it was no longer just about me was easily the most terrifying and anxiety-filled moment I'd ever had. It was no like bright lights and guardian angels singing in some choir about this beautiful. It was not a life insurance commercial for me. It was terrifying. And then I think the other thing is, as you get older, your narrative, if you're in any way self-aware, your narrative that you tell yourself. And my narrative up until the age of 40 was, despite coming from the single mother household, despite having no money, I became a baller, check my shit out. That was my narrative. I'm really feeling good about myself and the things I'd overcome. And then as you get older, the good news is you become more thoughtful and self-aware. The bad news is you become more thoughtful and self-aware. And it wasn't hard to go, okay, being born in the 60s, a white heterosexual male, was hitting the fucking lottery. I got to go to UCLA, which had a 76% admissions rate when I applied. I did not have good grades, but I didn't test well either, but somehow I got into UCLA. I got a 2.27 GPA undergrad. So what did Berkeley do? Berkeley let me into graduate school. Imagine that happening. Oh, you have a 2.3 GPA, come to one of the finest graduate programs in America. My total tuition, because I went to college in the 80s and 90s, was $7,000 total for 7 years of education at UCLA and Berkeley. I bought my first house in San Francisco for $285,000 when I was 28. Who can buy a house at 28 now? I came of professional age with processing power, so I had this Gale Force 5 wind in my sails. And then despite being run over a few times by a financial recession as I was coming into my prime income earning years in the late 2000s after the recession, I got to buy Apple and Amazon stock at 1/30th or 1/40th the price now. So it's like my narrative, my story that I told myself was I've overcome these things. I'm just such a baller. And then as you get older, you realize any honest appraisal in my life is that I kind of hit the lottery. And a lot of my success, I'm not a modest person. I think I'm very talented. I work hard. A lot of my success is not my fault. My freshman roommate at UCLA was very similar to me, very similar background, very similar advantages being at UCLA. We're both really talented guys. But God reached into his soul and decided that he was homosexual, not heterosexual, and dead of AIDS at 33. So what I tell young people who are doing well is a lot of your success is not your fault. So be humble and be grateful. At the same time, a lot of your failure is not your fault, and forgive yourself. But I think like most people, my evolution has been a function of very big, basic things happening to me and just trying to be a little bit more self-aware about my blessings.
Well, you said so many different things there. But so are you saying that you got luck plays a big role in success more than anything, your circumstances? I know you talk about in one of your books, or the book that I read a few of them, but the one I was very much really liked was The Algebra of Success, of Happiness, was it depends on your zip code and your credibility. That can kind of give you a lot of, that will kind of tell your story or what will happen in your success, I guess, trajectory. Would you say then it's people, if they have a chance, because there's a whole debate here about, do you go to the private schools, do you go to public schools? Would you say put yourself in places where you would have an alumni that can help elevate you, where you could be lucky, where opportunities show up, like go to the private schools, go to the Harvards versus the Cal State, I'm just making it up, to kind of change the trajectory of your possible success?
Like just the data is pretty clear. The largest signal or indicator of your success is when and where you're born. If I was born a male in 1920 in Germany, I probably would have died on a cold field in Russia. I mean, it just, when and where you're born is, as evidenced by the guy who was born, the same year as me, but born with a different sexual orientation. He hit the worst lottery. He had the worst luck in the world. Had he been born 10 years earlier, he probably would have been closeted, which is not a good thing, but he probably wouldn't have been as promiscuous. If he'd been born 10 years later, the cocktail would have saved him. Instead, he was born at exactly the wrong time as a gay man. And so there's just no getting around it. That is probably the biggest signal. Now, having said that, within your band, you do have a lot of agency. There are successful people. The bottom line is your own agency, your work, your ethics, your character will kind of put you at the top or the lower end of sort of a band, if you will. And some people break out of that band to the upside and the downside. 2/3 of billionaires globally are self-made. We have this myth that it's all dynastic wealth. It's not. It's getting a little bit like that in the US, but 2/3 of billionaires are self-made. So there are some people who claw their way out of some village in India, start a company, usually a tech company, and become hugely wealthy. There's the millionaire next door, someone usually with not that impressive a background who started, basics, right? Spent less than they made, saved, slowly but surely built small businesses, owns 5 dry cleaners, and makes a couple $1 million a year. So you have agency, but there's just no getting around it. Luck plays a huge role. I think the thing that really frustrates me is if you look at who are the most patriotic Americans, they're hands down the people who invested the most in America. There are veterans. People who serve feel very loyal to America because they've invested so much. It's sort of, anyone who's a parent can understand this. You invest so much in your kid that you're just more loyal to that child than anything in the world because you've invested so much. And veterans are incredibly patriotic people. What strikes me as really disappointing, and that's a wonderful thing, but what's really disappointing is that I feel the most blessed people in our society, specifically tech billionaires, are the least patriotic. They're the first ones to shitpost America and say the government should just get out of the way, or to disparage government officials. And there's a reason why Elon Musk is not shooting rockets off in Johannesburg. There's a reason he's not producing or didn't start an electric car company in Seoul. If you look up and down the West Coast, it is littered with companies worth $10, $50, $100 billion. I mean, it doesn't matter where. San Diego, Genentech, Orange County, you have SpaceX down in El Segundo, you have Snap, you have just these unbelievable, Microsoft, Amazon, Salesforce. They litter the West Coast. You get to the Canadian border and it stops until you get to Vancouver and there's Lululemon. you get to La Jolla and it stops until you go about 5,000 nautical miles till you hit Mercado Libre in Buenos Aires. So to not recognize that American infrastructure, government, rule of law, culture didn't play a massive role in your economic success is just to be totally, not only lack self-awareness, but to be really un-American. And it drives me crazy how many blessed Americans we have in the tech sector who made a lot of money, who then immediately pivot to this screed of government is bad and the U.S. is bad. And I just don't, it drives me crazy that our most blessed Americans seem to be our least patriotic.
So what do you think of the correlation is between intelligence and success? Do you think there's a correlation, or it's all these other ancillary things?
Well, there's data, there's research on this, and there is a correlation, but it tops out. It tops out at, I think, at about 120. And that is, a person who's got 120 IQ is much more likely to be successful than someone at 80. But actually above that, it flatlines, and they say when you get really, really smart, it actually turns on you. And that is, you become so thoughtful and see so many downsides to everything. I mean, one thing that entrepreneurs have is we're too stupid to know we're going to fail. There is a certain craziness. There is no company that makes any sense doesn't exist. Otherwise, it'd already be there. No startup makes any sense. Otherwise, it would already be there. And once you get above a certain IQ, those people usually make great employees 30 or 40, but they're not good 0, 1, and 2. Founders are usually very bright, but they're usually not, by traditional metrics, the smartest person in the company. What they have is risk aggression, and also more than anything, an ability to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a correlation between intelligence and money, but it tops out. It's sort of like the correlation between money and happiness. There is a correlation, but it tops out at some point. At some point, once you get to a certain level, additional money or additional IQ points don't make you more successful or any happier.
So like basically, because you, by the way, you moved to London, right? Are you in London right now?
No, I'm actually in New York.
Oh, you're in New York. Okay. So are you still a professor at NYU?
Yeah, I'm still affiliated with the university. I'm not teaching right now. I do seminars and fundraising and things like that, but I'm not currently teaching, which the students there remind me of like every day.
Since when? When did you stop?
I taught an online class during COVID, but I haven't taught a class in about, I haven't taught since I think 2021 or 2022.
Oh. What happened?
Well, nothing happened. I moved to London. I've taught 5,500 students, and I love teaching, but I wanted to live in London for a long time, and finally did it, and it's just not logistically feasible for me to commute back and forth from London to New York.
Do you like living there? Why did you move? Not like it's my business, really, but I'm curious.
No, the easiest questions are the ones the hardest to answer. We moved because I've always wanted to live in another country. That's one of my bucket list things. I wanted to live in another country, and I'm not getting any younger, and I wanted my kids to experience something different. I thought, what could you do? I mean, I said to my partner, every once in a while we sit down and say, like, what would be, this is finite. This is not a dress rehearsal. We're also blessed that we love each other, we have healthy kids, and we have resources. So it's like, why wouldn't we just reach for the fucking stars? And part of that is just sitting down and saying, like, what would you want to do that would make your life wonderful? Like, and I'll tell you what I would like to do. And one of the things we circled in on about 6 years ago was we'd like to live in another country. And then we circled in on the UK because realistically London would just be easier because of the language, and it's far from New York, but not too far. So we said, okay, in 5 years we're moving to London. And 4 years later, my wife went to London and bought a house, and 5 years later I was in London. So we wanted our kids to experience something different. We wanted a life experience. My parents are from the UK. My father's from Glasgow. My mother from London. I've always felt a calling. We love Premier League football. I've always felt a real kinship with the British. I just like them. I like the country. I think they've been fantastic allies for the United States. I think that's kind of the supreme partnership globally. So it just made a lot of, that was the place to go. I am not loving it. That's the sad part. The weather fucking sucks.
God, I was going to ask you about that.
The sun went behind a cloud in November. It came out about 2 weeks ago. It has a huge impact on my mood. So that's been a downer. The good news is Premier League football. I go to probably 1 or 2 games a week with my sons. And also, I'm just on planes a lot again. And at my age, I didn't want to be on planes again a lot. I'm in the last 3 weeks, I've been in Riyadh, Barcelona, San Diego, LA, Seattle, Austin, New York. I go to Miami in a few days and back to London. And it just it takes a toll on me.
Why are you just traveling too much for work stuff? And just like, how are you spending most of your time now, work-wise? Are you just doing a lot of speaking engagements, a lot of, I'd imagine?
Yeah, it's a lot of speaking gigs.
Yeah.
It's a lot of speaking gigs. And I mean, why do I do it? I'm a narcissist, and I still have economic anxiety. So to stand on a big stage in front of a lot of people who say nice things about me and look at me admiringly is still way too important to me. And I have this desperate need to feel relevant. And I'm still, even though I'm economically secure, I still have huge financial insecurity. So if someone says we're going to pay you, 3 times your mother's salary to come speak to us at our annual meeting, I'm like, a yes. And I want to stay relevant. I want to stay in the mix. And it's like Crimea River. I travel really well, and I do nice things, and I always have a great time, and I'm treated like a rock star when I go to these places. So it's not the worst thing in the world. But it's just a lot of time on planes. The only thing not perfect about my life is TSA. Everything else in my life is perfect.
So you're basically, do you think you're going to move back to the U.S. then? Is this just for a stint of time? Especially if you don't like it, if you don't like the weather.
I don't know. It's like you have your plan and God laughs. Yeah. I was born and raised in L.A. Where are you from?
I'm from Canada, but I live in L.A.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. Canada, L.A.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know about you. Life just happens to you. I was supposed to go to business school. I was at UCLA. I went to New York, got transferred back to UCLA. Didn't know what to do. Applied to graduate school. I enrolled at the University of Texas at Austin. Fell in love. I said, well, I'm going to UT. She was going to Berkeley for business school. And she said, well, I'm going. I said, I'm going to UT, da da da. And she said, well, I'm going to Berkeley. And I said, well, I'm going to Berkeley. And so I followed her and ended up in technology. I mean, you're so much a function of your context. If I'd gone to UT, I mean, there's a chance I would end up in like oil and gas or something else. So it was just so random. And then moved to New York thinking I'll just be here for another few years because I love New York. Was there for 10 years. Ended up living in Florida for 10 years. Wasn't planning that. So, it's like,
why Florida?
It's so random. Mostly for the kids again. We had the story ends well, but my oldest at the age of 3 was speech delayed, and we couldn't get him into any pre-K program. We got rejected by 7 schools, and it was so humiliating. It's like, I've been single and an entrepreneur my whole life. I'm used to rejection, but I'm not used to it for my 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And I found the process so demoralizing and humiliating to not be able to get my kid into school that we had some friends in Delray Beach. And we went to this beautiful school down there called Gulfstream, and they met our kid, and he was 4 by that time, and they had a pre-K program, and we said, we'd love to have your kid. And, now he's like headless and thriving. But we went down there more for kind of, we wanted to get out of the Manhattan school system. It just wasn't for us. We weren't successful at it. We didn't like it. And, and the weather's great down there, and we had childcare down there in the form of in-laws. Life happens.
Absolutely. So then is it the same woman that you were with back then? I'm just trying to follow the
no, several different women.
Yeah, I'm trying to follow chronologically.
No, it's the same
It's the same one. So
woman.
how long have you been married this time around?
We've been together about 20 years. I think we've been married, 15 or 17. I forgot. Most important day of my life, but I can't put a date on it.
It's so funny. You said something like never let your wife be cold or hungry. And that's one of the rules that me and my husband have too, which is 100% true. I love when you said that.
You forgot the third piece of advice, and it's less politically correct. I'm like, always express sexual desire and affection.
Oh yeah, you did say that too. You're right. I didn't forget. Actually, I just laughed at the other part because no one ever says that. But yes, you did say that too. Absolutely.
I think people want to be wanted.
Exactly.
I think that every time you, obviously in the right context, feel those emotions, you should express them unreservedly. I think romantic relationships and sex and affection are singular, and say, I choose you, and I think it's important not to lose that. But yeah, hands down, don't ever let a woman invest in dual climate zones. When I look back at the really ugly fights, one of us was hungry and it wasn't me. And,
oh my God,
and also
so true.
invest, have giant pashminas everywhere you spend any time. Always have a blanket within arm's
That's
reach.
absolutely true. And just on your third one that you're saying, are you Jewish, by the way? I don't know if you are or not, but
I am by heritage. My mother
Yeah.
was Jewish, but I'm an atheist.
Oh,
I don't practice.
you don't
it.
practice. Okay, I'm Jewish. Well, I'm Jewish and I practice, but in the Jewish religion, this guy, Rabbi, I remember his last name, but his whole thing is everybody wants to be chosen. So if you got to make someone feel chosen, and that's like the secret sauce to success in marriage or relationships. Very similar to what you said, right? Because everyone wants to feel special and chosen.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm getting totally off track. But I was very curious about your whole trajectory. So, okay, so now you're what I'm trying to figure out from just watching everything and understanding. So now how did you even become a professor at NYU after Morgan Stanley? You've had so many successes as an entrepreneur and a professor. How did you become like? I'm trying to get like how one thing led to another, right? Like L2, you sold L2. I know that. Can you kind of start from after Morgan Stanley?
Sure. So UCLA, lied about my
Yes, all
grades,
that.
got a job at Morgan Stanley, went back to business school. In my second year of business school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I didn't want to be an investment banker again. And we got inspired by a professor named David Ocker, who'd written kind of a seminal book on branding. And I said, I'm going to start a consulting firm, a strategy firm focused on branding. And the firm, was hard the first few years, but it then caught fire, and it's now about 500 people. I sold my stake in 2002 to Dentsu. In 1997, I realized the dot-com boom was in full swing, and I thought I want to try and monetize some of the intellectual capital we were garnering, advising everyone from Williams-Sonoma and Levi's how to do their online or e-commerce. So in the basement of Profit, we set up an incubator for e-commerce companies. We launched two companies, a company called Aardvark, a company called Red Envelope that went public in 2002.
Oh yeah.
And then in 2000, Red Envelope was supposed to go public, and I was supposed to be very wealthy. And I sat down, I had one of those moments, and I said, what would I do with my life if money wasn't an issue? Because it was supposedly not going to be an issue. And I thought I would get out of this hamster wheel called tech entrepreneurship. I don't like San Francisco. I hate the weather. I hate the political correctness. I don't like extreme politics on either side. And I just thought, it's a beautiful city. I understand why people love it. It wasn't for me. And I thought, I'm going to press the reset. I didn't like my life. I didn't like my marriage, quite frankly. I have a wonderful woman, but I didn't like being married. And I'm pressing the reset button. I'm moving to New York, and I'm joining the faculty at NYU. And I called an old marketing professor who was now the chair of the department. He said, sure, come teach. You start off with a small class, but I literally showed up in New York and literally rebooted my life. And the first couple of years were really difficult. It was like I felt very much alone and kind of deserved that. I had chosen that. It took me probably 5 years to get any professional traction whatsoever. My first year in New York, I think my tax return was, I made $12,000 as an adjunct professor. But yeah, and then I started teaching, and I've been teaching since 2001, 2002. And along the way, started advising hedge funds on their tech and media investments, and then started an analytics company or business intelligence firm called L2, sold that. That was kind of life-changing. I'd done okay. I'd had some wins, some modest wins, some failures. That was a big win. And then along the way, just got very involved in investing or co-investing along with hedge funds. That's how I get to live the lifestyle I lead. But what I do and my passion, where I spend most of my time, is writing. I think of myself at the end of the day as a teacher and my skill is to communicate across different mediums. So I do newsletters, books, podcasts, but I see myself at the end of the day as a teacher, and I try and focus on different mediums of communication. But I'm a teacher. That's just how I got here. And the other stuff is just such that I can live in Manhattan and go to fancy places.
What do you teach though? What's your specialty? I know that writing and communication for sure is something you're great at, but what is your specialty where you were able to do the strategic consulting and all the other stuff? Is it that you see things way before they become what they are, like the whole, or what is it more strategy, branding? How would you describe what that is? What is your courses that you teach at NYU? What's the classes called?
I've taught two courses. One is brand strategy and the other is digital marketing. And at the end of the day, you're just trying to figure out how do you get more out of a certain asset, whether it's a brand or intellectual property or distribution or some IP. Like any manager has the same task, and that is to get a greater ROI and a similar set of resources as an equivalent manager and equivalent firm. And I've always thought that brands were sort of under-leveraged assets, but slowly over time, the course has sort of evolved to more, of course, on how traditional industry is disrupted. If you're Time Warner, how's technology going to change your business? If you're Ford Motor, if you're P&G, if you're WPP, how's technology going to change your business? So the course sort of evolved in kind of a disruption course, because what I was preaching was getting tired. Kind of the Mad Men, Don Draper, brand is everything, great ad campaign can save your company. That shit just got tired, and that sword's gotten duller and duller. And the masters in the universe when I was getting out of business school, the Omnicoms, the IPGs, the WPPs of the world, big tech will lose or gain the value of all of those firms in a trading day. They've just become less important. So I pivoted through the 2000s to how do you build shareholder value by leveraging technology, and that's kind of been my domain, is talking about technology. But the stuff that resonates with people is when you talk about fatherhood, or you talk about I found a white space around brand, and I made a good living on it. I found a white space around technology disrupting traditional industry, and I made a living around it. The place that has by far had the most impact, hands down, in my life, is this real empty white space of a white heterosexual guy in his 50s talking about his emotions. That has been the space that no one else occupied. That's the place where people stop me on the street and say, talking about your mom or talking about your sons. No one stops me and says, oh my God, the e-commerce strategy you launched for Old Navy was fucking genius. No one cares about that. That paid my mortgage for a little bit, but people will stop me and say, talking about putting your dog down. That's the stuff that moves people. That's, at the end of the day, the stuff that I find most rewarding is when I have the confidence and the courage to speak openly and also in a raw fashion to speak about. I'm a profane, vulgar person, and it turns some people off. But it also, I think more of us are profane and vulgar inside between our ears. We just don't say it out loud for fear of some sort of ramification. I'm like, if you're economically secure and you have people who love you, you have an obligation to say what you're thinking. You should not be unkind. You never want to disenfranchise or diminish people, but you should say what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I did notice you speak about your mom a lot. Almost in everything I've seen in books, your mom comes up a lot. So she obviously played a huge part of shaped who you've become. How about your dad? Has your dad?
Not as much. So my dad left us when I was 8, and my dad was neither of my parents got through past 8th grade in school. Not very, flag veteran, not very sophisticated people. And I would say my dad was this handsome man with a strong jaw, a great sense of humor, and a Glaswegian accent, which meant in 70s California, he could not only think with his dick, he could listen to it. My dad's been married 4+ times. We think it's 4 times. It's probably more than that. He started number 3 when he was still married to my mom. And just kind of blew up the household. And I think like a lot of kids, 50% of marriages end in divorce, but like a lot of kids, I found myself living with a single mother in San Fernando Valley. And I would say to kids, the learning here, other than, feeling sorry for me, I would say to kids, the most important decision you'll make is who you partner with, specifically who you have kids with. I have a lot of friends who are hugely successful by all exterior metrics, but they don't have a great partner. And their life's full of stress and disappointment. And then I have other friends who are struggling economically, and that is a huge source of anxiety for them. I get that. But they have a real partner in their mate, and everything burns a little brighter. Everything's a little bit easier. So the hands down, the most important decision you'll make is who you partner with. And my mom made a bad decision. I mean, my dad, he checked a really important box, and that is he was better to me than his dad was to him. He was physically abused. I found out from his siblings later in life that he was literally physically abused by his father. Grew up in Depression-era Scotland, and he made an effort with me. Even though after they were divorced, he made an effort, but there's just no getting around it. The relationship was stressed because it wasn't that he was bad to me, but he was mean/hostile to the most important person in my life, my mother. And so it was impossible for me not to take sides, right? And also my parents were really unsophisticated about it. They used to send really ugly messages to each other via an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, just shit you wouldn't do now. And they're not bad people. They just weren't very sophisticated. So I didn't have much of my dad did make an effort, but I'll give you an example. My dad's not doing well right now. When my mom wasn't doing well, I moved in with her. My dad's not doing well. I will pay for help. I will have someone go there, but I'll go see him once every couple months. It's just a different relationship.
Yeah.
But the growth there is 15 or 20 years ago. I've always just struggled with being close to him because I felt like he wasn't very good to me and my mom. And then what I decided was I'm just going to put the bullshit aside, and I'm going to try and decide what kind of son do I want to be. And the answer is I want to be a really good son. I want to be a generous, good son. And I started behaving that way. And it's been liberating because my dad is a funny, charming guy. He does love me. He did make an effort. He treated me much better than his father treated him. And so I hold on to that stuff.
No, I mean, I understand that. That makes more than you know. What I'm interested, you talk about this in your new book, Adrift, about people dating and socializing, which I talk about all the time as well. Just people aren't even having relationships anymore, and people are not even able to socialize. I want you to kind of talk about all the stuff that you've had, your perspective on that. And truthfully, like, what are we going to do about it? Because I feel like people are losing the ability to even know how to socialize, know how to date, how to build relationships, even how to meet the proper mate, right? Because it's based on usually now going on a dating app, swiping, and if you think someone's hot enough, you'll go out with them. So you're kind of limiting who you're dating, but at the same time, you're not meeting people through friends, going out in real life. It's all just, could be good and bad, right? It opens up your community, right? Or it opens up your world because you can see people from all over the place. But there's really zero other connections or connecting points to build relationships that are fundamentally going to last. No one wants them to last. They just go up to the next one.
Yeah, I think a lot about this. I think it's the biggest threat to our society right now. And people say, what are the biggest threats? Anytime you transition one substance to another, when you transition plant-based calories to meat-based, you get methane and deforestation, right? We know that meat consumption is not good for us. Anytime you transition fossil fuels into energy, you have carbon, exceptionally damaging emission. I still think they're all bested by these algorithms and really talented, well-resourced people and companies transitioning attention to advertising, to money. And the algorithms have figured out a way to keep us so engrossed in our phones that the result is an absolute dearth or an enormous reduction in human contact. The number of high schoolers that see their friends every day has been cut in half in the last 10 years. 40% fewer people say hello to their neighbors. Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are dying on the vine. Church attendance has been cut in half over the last 40 years. And we're mammals. I don't care if you're orcas or a dog or a human. We're literally supposed to lie on top of each other. We're supposed to be physical. We're supposed to be in the proximity of each other. Your mental health, your mental wellness, up until the age of 21, as evidenced by this great research my colleague Jonathan Haidt has done, is inversely correlated to the amount of time on your phone. It's especially damaging for young men, and I think a lot about young men. And it goes something like this. Young men are biologically less mature. The prefrontal cortex is 12 to 24 months behind a girl's brain. Women are much better at maintaining social contact. They will make plans to go to brunch. And then, so they have stronger friend networks. 1 in 7 men don't have a single friend. If you were given a choice between smoking a pack of cigarettes a day and having friends, and not smoking, but not having friends, you'll live longer if you smoke a pack of cigarettes a day and have friends. It is literally, all of this research coming out shows one thing: loneliness kills. And these algorithms are giving you a bunch of low-risk ways to avoid human contact. Do I really want to go to that dinner party or that reception? I don't know people. I'm already in my pajamas. Oh, I'm going to binge Succession, and I can get great food via Instacart. Do I really want to take the risk of trying to meet a woman and make the huge investment and the awkwardness and the shame if I get rejected? Or should I just go on Snap and talk to people? Or should I just consume pornography, which has a low risk, lower reward outcome? Do I really want to go into the office and I'm going to find a job that's remote work? And we're graduating, we're producing a cohort of young men who are emotionally and economically unviable. There's going to be 2 female college graduates for every 1 male graduate the next 5 years. And you think, well, that's okay. Women are leveling up. And by the way, that's a wonderful thing. I'm not suggesting we do anything to slow that progress. But here's the reality. And we don't like to talk about this on the left. Women, for the most part, are not interested in mating socioeconomically down. They mate socioeconomically horizontally and up, men horizontally and down. So as women have metaphorically, 50% of women say they won't date someone shorter than them. I bet it's more like 70 or 80, but it's an embarrassing thing to
99%, but go on.
But here's the thing, metaphorically, women are getting taller, and it's awesome, and men are getting shorter. And so you go on Tinder, 50 men, 50 women.
Are women really getting taller?
Well, I meant taller.
Okay, I'm like, okay.
Graduating from college.
I'm like, well,
more single women now own homes than single men.
Oh, it's, I agree.
2 to 1 female college grads to male college grads. 1 in 3 men you pass on the street under the age of 30 has not had sex in the last year. And people hear the word sex and it goes to much different places, but it's an elemental foundation of establishing a relationship. There are conservative newspapers and magazines now advocating for more teen sex because teens, it's a negative connotation or attribute of this important thing called socialization with teens. And quite frankly, the massive drop in teen pregnancy indicates a larger problem, and that is teens aren't learning the skills around how to socialize. And especially you have this entire cohort of young men. How many times do you hear people say, I know all these great women and they can't find
I was just going to say to you, I was going to say that the problem is everybody's become so PC that they're not saying what's really true in real life. In real life, what girls are attracted to are alpha men who actually are providers, who go after you, who are I'm not saying aggressive in a bad way, but who are men, manly. But they're not breeding them the same way anymore. There's very few and far between. I know a lot of my girlfriends who are like rock stars. They're beautiful. They're super successful. They're super educated, and they're super single. They can't find a guy to save their life. They can't find one guy that meets them where they are. It's impossible. I mean, and I see it. I mean, I wasn't sure if it's just because in the big city, in LA, New York, big metropolitan cities. But honestly, I think it's everywhere. It's a real problem. It's a major problem. So when I see you, when I talk about this a lot in my stuff, and when I see you talk about it, I think that the world has become so scared of saying what's actually true with everything. Everything now is like, I'm so nervous I'm going to get canceled. I'm so nervous I'm going to offend somebody. So everything is like watered down nonsense, which is not even accurate to what the real reality is in life is.
Yeah, so I find the way you avoid what can quickly become an emotional conversation that triggers people is just lead with data. So here's some data.
Yeah.
75% of women say that economic viability is a key component, a key criteria in a mate. 25% of men. Men don't care what women are doing professionally. And by the way, that's a problem in itself. But if you're not economically viable as a man, you're kind of off the dating market. And in addition, women are choosier. I say this at conferences. I'll be in a conference with 500 people. I'm like, if there's alcohol involved, the majority of the men would sleep with the majority of the women in this room. The majority of the women would sleep with none of the men. When you have online dating, the women can apply their much finer filters and say, I'm just not interested. And here's the thing. If you talk to couples, they will usually say one of them was more interested than the other at the beginning. But online dating is about a snap reaction. And here are the snap reactions instinctively that women have in terms of mating criteria. For men are very base. Oh, she looks nice. Oh, she looks cute. Swipe right. Women are much choosier. And there's an evolutionary component to that. But women's criteria, and this is science for men or for a mate, are 1, resources. Not only the resources at the current moment, but their ability to signal that they'll have resources in the future. So I'm 28, but I just got an MBA from MIT and I'm starting work at Bridgewater. He's going to be just fine on the apps. Number 2 is intelligence. It's hard to get intelligence across on an app. The quickest way to show intelligence is humor. I've always said if you can make a woman laugh, you can kiss her. And that offends some people, but I'm sticking by it. And then number 3 is kindness. Everyone talks about the bad boy, fine, but you can be rich, you can be smart, but if you're an asshole, people figure it out and don't want to commit to you long term. It's those 3 things. But here's the thing, numbers 2 and 3 cannot be communicated online, only number 1. So every profile that has a decent looking guy who graduated from Stanford, lives in New York, and oh, what do you know, his Rolex accidentally slipped into his profile picture, he's going to engage in what's called Porsche polygamy. And that is 50 men on Tinder, 50 women. 46 of the women will show all of their attention to just 4 men. Women are all chasing the same guy, and online with its filters and its databases lets them find that same guy. And so he has a date or 3 every night, and it doesn't lead to good behavior. It doesn't incent him to form a long-term relationship, and quite frankly, maybe even he gets away with what would be considered inappropriate behavior, right? 50 to 90 among men just do okay. If your average attractiveness on Tinder for a man or below, you have to swipe right 200 times before someone matches back to you. And then if you get 5 matches, 4 of the 5 will ghost you. They'll decide, I really didn't like him that much. I don't actually want to meet for coffee. So a man who isn't a baller or have the ability to indicate real success at a young age has to swipe, has to match, has to find 1,000 women that he swipes right on to get 1 coffee, which validates that and he's been told this because he's having trouble getting a job. He didn't get into the college he wanted because he demonstrates male behavior that colleges don't want. He gets validation that he has no value. And then what happens to these guys? They become more prone to misogynistic content. People have a gag reflex when I advocate for men because who has filled the void where we weren't talking about failing young men? this thinly veiled misogyny from guys like Andrew Tate that say these vile things. So they immediately associate advocacy for men with misogyny. And these guys get drawn to this terrible content. They're less likely to believe in climate change. They're more likely to believe that vaccines are bad for you. And in some, they turn into shitty citizens. And we're producing millions of them. And so it's not that women can't find a date. Women can't find someone they want to date. So unless we make, in my opinion, a massive investment in not men, but young people who have seen their wealth decline as a percentage of GDP, it's gone from 11% of all resources to more like 6, which will level up men if we give young people more generally more opportunities. We're going to have a lack of household formation. And when young men don't attach to work, don't attach to school, don't attach to women, they become the most dangerous person in the world. And the one thing the most violent, unstable societies have in common, all of them, is they have a disproportionate number of young, broken, alone men. And we are producing way too many of them. And the last thing I'll say here is people understandably have a bit of a gag reflex here. They go, oh, wait, so women are too successful or somehow women have an obligation to service men. I'm not saying that at all. We want our girls and our women to continue to kill it and continue to advance economically. That is a wonderful thing. It is a sign of our progress. We should celebrate it. Advocating for young men, highlighting their problems, is not a zero-sum game. Compassion is not a zero-sum game. Civil rights did not hurt white people. Gay marriage did not reduce the quality of heteronormative marriage. But unless we acknowledge the numbers, young men are 4 times more likely to kill themselves, 3 times more likely to be addicted, 12 times more likely to be incarcerated. They are falling economically. Unless we acknowledge this issue, we're not going to have an honest conversation about it. And what I find is that the cohort I get the most support from is mothers who will say something along the lines of the following. I have 2 daughters, 1 son. 1 daughter's a pen, the other's in PR. The third is my son is in the basement vaping and playing video games. Who wants more economically and emotionally viable young men? Women. So I think that we need to have an open, honest conversation that the 95% of people who identify as binary have different criteria on what they're looking for in a mate. Your criteria in a mate is different for men and women. That's not to say that by any stretch of the imagination that non-binary people aren't entitled to the same rights and liberties, but we can have an open and honest conversation about failing young men. It's a big drag in our society right now.
And what's the solution? Because unless you stop with the dating apps and the technology that's just getting quicker and quicker, it keeps on, like with all the AI now and everything else is a whole other thing. I mean, you can't slow it down. So it's just going to keep on getting worse. How do you stop this from happening? Because men are becoming in a way obsolete, right? What are women supposed to do? If they're becoming better, bigger and better, so to speak, are they just should be reside to the fact that they're going to be alone their whole life? Because unless you're super hot, right, and the guys then have a check, the ones that are actually considered the good ones, they can pick and choose who they want, right? And so what happens to the rest of them? Number one, so what happens to the women? And number two, how do you like stifle and stop this from happening to men so we can actually have like a proper society, have a society that's actually functioning, unless you stop technology?
So I think the first is just having an honest conversation and recognizing that advocating for men does not mean you're a misogynist. That there's a real reason. And also changing the language. When we talk about people of color or women and the challenges they face, we talk about it in tones of a societal problem that warrants investment. When it was 40-60 female to men college admissions, we leveled women up. When blacks and Latinos were underrepresented in our higher education institutions, we had affirmative action and we tried to level them up. Still a lot of work to be done, but we took it very seriously and we made investments. When you talk about young men failing, the nomenclature changes. It's like, well, they need to level up. Well, it's about time. It just takes on an entirely different tone that lacks compassion, not recognizing that a 19-year-old boy, and let's be honest, there's still boys at that age, should he be paying for the sins of his father and his grandfather? Struggling, very prone to addiction, not a lot of opportunity, almost no mating opportunities. So solutions. One, and a lot of this is parroting Richard Reeves, who wrote a book called The Boys and Men, which is kind of the seminal, the landmark book on the topic. And he's sort of my Yoda on the stuff. We should recognize that men or boys mature later and possibly redshirt them, and that is start boys in kindergarten at 6 and girls at 5. I think we should have mandatory national service. I think a lot of the problems we're talking about do not happen at the same levels in countries with national service, because when you put everyone in the same uniform at the age of 18 for a couple of years in the service of something bigger than themselves, I'm not necessarily saying it has to be the military, it can be senior care, it can be parks, whatever it might be, and you meet people from different economic, demographic, cultural, different sexual orientation, you start to see each other as Americans first, give them a chance to make friends, make mentors, meet mates. I invest in a lot of Israeli companies. I'm shocked how many founders met each other in the Army. I'm shocked how many people met their spouse in the Army. I think we need more connective tissue that recognizes we're Americans before we're Republicans or Democrats. I think we need an investment in something called third places, and that is opportunities for random interaction. I don't think every kid should go to college, but I think every kid should have the opportunity. I'd like to see, I thought the student bailout was terrible legislation. I think we should have spent that money in dramatically expanding freshman seats, much more vocational programming, more investments in tax credits for things like parks or even companies that are starting. There's a company in Britain I'm about to invest in that's investing in these things called Wave Gardens and Putt Shack, where people go during the day with their families and then at night it turns into kind of a singles bar. And I'm like, we need more, if you will, kind of barbershops. We need more parks. We need more church groups, softball leagues, after-school programs, where you run into someone and go, okay, maybe he's not making $200,000 a year. Maybe he doesn't look like Brad Pitt, but he's funny. Or I meet her and she's maybe really shy, but there's this thing called pheromones that just makes me really hot for her. And I'm going to keep trying every time I randomly run into her at creative writing class. Where do young people meet? They meet online. And there's no second chance online. You're swiped left, you're done. And anything more than that is technically stalking. And what about when no one's going into work?
That's a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing. No one wants to work.
And this is, again, we don't talk about this. 1 in 3 relationships 1 in 3 people have had a relationship that began at work. And because of some abhorrent behavior by people who engage in criminal activity, every HR department has decided it's a bad thing. Well, guess what? 99% of relationships that begin at work are consensual.
Yep.
And you get a chance to see people. You get a chance to know them. You get a chance to find out, oh, I wouldn't have been drawn to her, but I am because she's so impressive, or I just like the way she moves. Whatever. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about human sexuality. It's just so unpredictable. But if no one's going into work, where are young people supposed to meet? And they meet in the worst place possible. They meet in the Hunger Games, where it's awesome to be a rich guy, awesome to be a hot woman, and a soul-crushing experience for everybody else.
Yep. And also I feel like it breeds laziness in general, like technology, all this stuff, because you don't have to get out of your pajamas. You can go into Zoom and you can just like be lazy, and you don't have to, like you said, you don't have to go to the movie premiere because you can just stay home and you scroll and do whatever. Like, do you feel like today's this, like, we're not breeding grit. We're not breeding tenacity like we used to.
Look, I love what Esther Perel says, that attractiveness plus obstacles is desire. I was born without a lot of money. I have a lot of money now, and it's just fucking awesome. And it's better than being born with money. If I had to do it again and I wouldn't know I would have money, trust me, I would pick to be a trust fund kid, because the insecurity of not having money would be too much for me to handle. But knowing what I know now, not having money and then having money is the way to go, because you appreciate it. You love it. You feel good about it. It's like it's victory. It's just like, the moment of getting to economic security is so liberating. I know it's how crass it is. I love making money and spending it. And much of that is because I didn't have it. When you're attracted and drawn to someone and you get your heart broken, when you're attracted and drawn to someone and they're initially not interested, when you have problems in your relationship and you overcome them, and you get to spend time with that person, you get to be physical with them, you get to take fun vacations to them, you get to impress your friends by introducing this person. That is the greatest form of accomplishment, desire come to fruition. And the reason why romantic comedies are 2 hours and not 10 minutes is there's obstacles. Meeting in real life is hard. It's embarrassing. It involves rejection and awkwardness and cringe and saying stupid things and things not working out and getting your emotions like just fucked with. These things are painful. And so through technology, everyone's taken like, okay, porn never says no to me, right? I'll just swipe and maybe I'll find the right person instead of investing and getting to know someone in kind of a random encounter. I'll buy crypto. I don't want to actually work. I can make money buying Dogecoin. I saw a screenshot of someone who made money. We're reducing the wonders of desire, like real desire. I remember I had a 2.27 GPA. The only reason I graduated from UCLA is I used to occasionally go to class in hopes that I might meet a woman who would eventually come to a fraternity party and eventually like have sex with me. That was my motivation for going to college.
Yep.
And you know what? That's all right.
Yes.
I was doing it for the right reasons. I got me a college degree, and then I started getting my act together. And by the way, spoiler alert, that's how 19-year-old men think. And if I had all this online options around trying, some illusion that I could make money online, some illusion that I was learning or getting education online, some illusion that I could find a mate online, none of this, nothing, every wonderful thing that'll happen to you is going to be a function of two things. One, taking an uncomfortable risk, starting a business, starting a podcast, writing something that's raw, approaching a stranger and expressing interest in being their friend or romantic interest. And you know what? It's going to happen outside your house. I mean, the really wonderful shit in your life, the landmark shit, is going to involve taking an uncomfortable risk, and it's going to happen outside of your house.
Unfortunately, I don't see the pendulum swinging backwards, though, because we're just moving so quickly in the other direction. But as a professor, I mean, you see students all the time. Is there like one indicator or a couple indicators that you can point to that you can say that you notice that they will become successful humans and live, not just money success, I mean in general? Like, what do you see in school? I mean, I know you haven't taught for a couple of years, but you're still involved.
I mean, I'm around the elite.
Yeah.
I'm teaching second-year MBAs who just have their act together.
Yeah.
They're smart, in shape, attractive, ambitious. These are the elite. And they're more and more impressive every year. They're more facile with technology. I actually find they're kinder, they're more socially aware. The graduating class of 2023 is just hands down could kick the shit out of my class in 1992 on every dimension. And so a lot of the cynicism you hear about young people, I'm not sure it's warranted. The kids who haven't had exposure to that kind of success or kind of access, we live in a rejectionist bullshit luxury culture. The richest man in the world sells desire and exclusivity, Bernard Arnault. And unfortunately, America has adopted the same rejectionist culture where once you have a college degree, we applaud our dean for letting in fewer and fewer people. We love that 90% of applicants to our alma mater are rejected. Now UCLA, when I got in with 76% acceptance, now it's 9. And the majority of alumni like that because it makes their degree more valuable. Once you have a house, you become very engaged in the local growth board meetings and show up and figure out intelligent, thoughtful ways for why we shouldn't build more housing. And it takes the price of your house up because once you have a house, you want more housing built so young people can find a house. Once you have a tech company, you want to weaponize government, regulatory capture to make it harder for small tech companies. So we've entered into this exclusionary luxury positioning, especially at higher universities, that makes it much more difficult for younger people to get ahead. I think young people are more skilled. I think they're more empathetic. I think they're much more aware of their social surroundings. The most encouraging thing that's happened to me is my 12-year-old told me the other day, and he's always trying to get me. He's obsessed with malls for some reason. We've seen every mall in London.
Mall?
And he's like, mall. And he's got the ultimate trick. He's like, I've spent too much time on my phone. I need to get off my phone. It's like this. I think the guys from the kids 18 to 30 are just fucked. They grew up with the phone, their formative years. I usually think the younger ones are figuring it out. They're like seeing so much information that's just like, this is not good for you. And
I
so
don't know about
I think
that.
there's,
I have an 8-year-old
you
and a
don't think so?
10-year-old, and it's like really, really hard. And every
They're already drawn to it?
Oh, I have to constantly like figure out ways. I mean, if I'm not putting him in a million sports or taking him somewhere, or my other daughter in dance, it's really hard because now they're getting their own phones. You know, like they're not my kids, but like their friends. A lot of it's peers, right? And then if they're not getting them, then it's very difficult.
Well, this is what you'll get from people who don't have kids. Well, okay, and from big tech. We realize it's a problem. Overusage is a problem. We are fans of limiting. You know, you should limit your kids' use. It's a parenting problem. And here's the thing. And again, Jonathan Haidt, and I think her name's Jean Twenge, just came out with this research. There's something called the cohort effect, and that is if your kid's on Snap and you say, okay, it's hurting you mentally. 1 in 3 teenage girls has contemplated suicide. 1 in 5 LGBTQ youth have actually tried suicide. I mean, think about this. I just went back to my public high school, University High School in LA, and I met with the superintendent of LVSD. Okay, 1 in 5 LGBTQ youth will attempt to commit suicide. You got a high school with 2,000 kids, somewhere between 5 and 10% will identify as gay. So call it 200 kids. That means 10. He's sitting there at orientation. 10 of those LGBTQ kids are going to try and kill themselves. I mean, this is staggering. When I was at University High School, we had a big high school. Every week there were memorials for a kid who had died. And you know how they died? All of them, car accidents. We didn't have seatbelts, we didn't have airbags.
Yeah.
We used to get ridiculously fucked up and drive along Sunset Boulevard to get to a party, and inevitably some kid would roll his Jeep and get killed or something. Now the same number of memorials, but it's a different thing. It's not driving, it's deaths of despair. It's depression, it's suicide, it's opioid addiction. So we've replaced the car is no longer the culprit in alcohol. It's depression, mostly fed by social media on a mobile device. So it's, you know, I'm hopeful, but until there's regulation and legislation, we have an FDA for food, we have an SEC for banks. There's no regulatory body for big tech, and they're very smart. They will weaponize very attractive, compelling women who talk about gender balance and personal loss, and we need to do better, and we're proud of the progress we've made. And then they send out an email to a 14-year-old girl in the UK, and this happened, where the algorithm picked up that she was depressed, and they sent her an email, and the exact words were, here are some images on suicide we thought you might find interesting. And they sent her images of nooses, pills, and razors. This happened. So these organizations, until there's regulation, just the same way you cannot put a diabetes drug on the counter without hundreds of millions of testing, just as you cannot pour mercury into the river, you cannot put pesticides above a certain limit in your food. Until we have that in big tech, it's just going to get worse. And they have figured out the game. Pretend you give a flying fuck, and then be a mendacious fuck. That is the playbook, and they are very good at it.
Like even people like you or me, right? Like you're on social media all the time, or are you? Like how do you control? Like you said yourself, like you want validation, you're doing all these things because of it. Like I get drawn in I'm on social media. It's very hard for my brain, even though I know intellectually, I still can't help myself. So how do you expect an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old to have willpower to not do it? It's really difficult.
You can't, and you brought up, I think everybody has a certain level, I try to talk about this openly. I think everybody has a certain level of addiction. And addiction is instinctively healthy. When we didn't have access to salty, fatty, or sugary foods, when we had access to them, you ate up. Because who knew when you were going to find meat again? You know, fruit, you know, who knew when you were going to find this again? And our instincts, or our appetite, our instincts haven't caught up to the institutional production of these things, so we have obesity. It's just hard when you have salty, fatty food in front of you to not go, God, I got to eat it because I'm about to go into a cave for 2 months. But when there's not a mating opportunities, we've become obsessed with them. I'm addicted. Everybody has a certain level of addiction in their life. It can be sugar, trans fats, affirmation, codependent relationship, online shopping, porn, whatever it is. Hands down, my addiction is the affirmation of strangers. I spend way too much time focused on what total strangers think of me, and not enough time. I've gotten much better at it, worrying about what the people who love me think of me. I'm sorry, Nolan, that's I don't have time right now. I'm checking to see how many likes I got. I mean, effectively, that's what I'm doing on social media. I give a speech, I'm on TV, I immediately hit Twitter, like, do they love me? It is pathetic. But I at least recognize it so I can modulate it. I don't engage on Twitter. I don't respond to people because I generally find it's probably someone who isn't who they say they are, who's angry or whatever it is. But social media is really, I would say, if I've had 4 or 5 mental health episodes in the last 2 years, 2 or 3 of them have kind of started on social, where someone attacks me or makes a cartoon of my comments, and it upsets me and it takes me to a bad place. And I'm like, well, why would I engage in this? And the reality is, affirmation and wanting to be loved is a key component of a successful society. So it makes sense to want to have that affirmation. I'm able to modulate it, but as you said, I remember the moment it happened with my oldest. He did a handstand and I videoed it on the beach in Montauk. And he said, can you post it on YouTube? And I said, sure. And he got a like and a comment saying, great handstand. And then another one, and he's like, and all of a sudden, I could see him like, oh no. And he's like asking me, can we check my comments? And then he got the comment saying, this is a stupid video. Someone just wrote, this is a stupid video. And I saw the disappointment in his eyes. And then he needed to check it every 30 seconds. Yeah. Because here's the thing. Ogilvy and the ad industrial complex from 1945 to 1995, they figured out that sex sells. And all ads and all media were kind of loosely or about the same thing. Drink our beer and you're more likely to have a random sexual experience because you're younger and hotter when you drink our beer. You're more European elegance. You're like a rock when you buy a Chevy, which will make you more masculine, more attractive potential mates. It was the prospect of sex and mating. It was the ultimate draw in marketing and media. Now the algorithms have figured out, oh no, there's something much better, and it's rage. And if we can get you to say something really aggressive, dunking on someone else that will force them to come back and invite a bunch of people into a dialogue around vaccines, altering your DNA, around Trump, whatever it is, whatever we can get you to argue about, whatever we can get you to start rage, that'll get everyone to weigh in, and we're going to sell more Nissan ads and make more money. And that rage, the transition of the substance of attention to Nissan ads to shareholder value, is, in my opinion, the worst omission that's happened. And that rage that we're putting into kids' lives and that lack of self-worth. Who wants to be presented with their full self at the age of 15? You know, I don't know you at 15. I was 5'10", 120 pounds of bad skin, but I got to go home and take a break every once in a while. I wasn't ridiculed, but it wasn't like, it wasn't, high school wasn't like an esteem building experience.
No, it was not. 100% agree with you.
What if you're faced with your full self 24/7? It's especially bad for girls. Think about what a place of perversion Instagram begins with. Instagram's algorithms encourage a 16-year-old girl to to take pictures of herself in very revealing clothing, such that her peers and strange men all over the world can evaluate and comment on.
Oh, it's unbelievable. I totally agree, and it's like, and also because now if you don't get the likes, you don't get the affirmations, so you feel like it becomes like it's like a slippery slope where then you're just basically naked, and it's just normalized.
Yeah, it's rage and porn. That's what I see. Meta is brought to you by rage and porn.
Totally, it's the truth. I mean, so how do you monitor yourself, modulate it? Are you giving yourself a finite, like, I'll go on an hour? Like, do you do your own social media? Do you have someone to help you? How do you do it?
I don't do it nearly as much myself. I basically use it as a marketing vehicle now, and that is I splice up my content. I'm actually using AI to help me. If I write a post, I'm like, you know, kind of my center of gravity, or what my baby, if you will, is my newsletter, No Mercy, No Malice. It goes out to about 350,000 people. But now I can feed it into a generative AI and say, give me 8 tweets from this content, and I'll pick 2 or 3 of them. And then I have a social media manager who snakes it through LinkedIn, Instagram, Medium, all the different platforms. But I use it as a vehicle for marketing my content. I no longer engage with people. I no longer go on YouTube and respond to the comments, because the comments, other than occasionally saying thank you when I get a nice message from somebody, and I want to be clear, 90%, it depends on the platform. 98% of the comments on LinkedIn are positive, 90% on YouTube are positive, 70 or 80 on Instagram. Twitter's kind of like 50-50. But I no longer quite frankly, I just no longer engage. I'm like, what am I doing? Why on earth would I engage here? Put your content out there, use it as a business tool. But I'm not going to paint their fence for free. I'm not going to make them rich so I can like yell at someone who might be, you know, a fake account. What's the point? And it's pathetic that I would get so emotionally involved in arguing with someone.
It happens though with everybody though. You know, it's. Are you on TikTok also or no?
I am, but just again for promotional material. I can watch TikTok. I find TikTok addictive. I love
You
it.
think?
If it were up to my 12-year-old, if I said to them, okay, you can do anything you want, my 12-year-old would put on diapers, go into his room, lie down like he was in an opium den, and use the diapers so he wouldn't have to get up to pee, and just watch TikTok until he literally passed out. That would be his dream. The Chinese are doing to our youth what we did to the Chinese, or the British did to the Chinese with opium. That thing is addictive. I mean, I just think it's incredible. So I try not to spend too much time on it, because I look up and I'm like, well, that's 30 minutes on the route back.
Unbelievable.
And although it is kind of interesting to see what the algorithm decides you're interested in, because it knows you better than yourself. And what
do they pull up for you? What do you get on your?
Oh, for me, I'm wonky. It's like economists, videos of Great Danes, because I have a Great Dane, and someone talking about social justice who also just happens to be ridiculously hot. That's kind of what it's figured out. It's zeroed in on me. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
That's hilarious.
And occasionally a chiropractor adjusting someone. I'm fascinated with that too. Yeah, so that's my life.
That is, well, not CrossFit. I thought fitness. Do you still do CrossFit, or you stopped it?
I do, but I do old man CrossFit. Do you do CrossFit?
No, I'm a big fitness person though, so I get a lot of fitness. I mean, but you know, I heard you talk about like how you do old man CrossFit and you love CrossFit and blah blah blah. So you still do it?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's my antidepressant. It's what I do to sort of keep level-headed. I think. Yeah. You know, I coach a lot of young men, and I'm like, every man under the age of 30 has a goal, should be able to walk in any room and know that if shit got real, they could kill and eat everybody or outrun them.
Totally true.
Men are. We talk a lot about the female form. Women are beautiful. It's just great art. Like the female form is intoxicating, beautiful, arresting. The male form is ridiculously fucking strong, and it's really impressive. And there's nothing wrong with letting testosterone pour over a bone structure and a massive amount of double twitch muscle such that you can get ridiculously strong. And I was an athlete in college, and I got huge confidence, huge work ethic, really tested my limits by being just ridiculously strong in my 20s. And every man should be ridiculously strong at some point. It'll make you kinder. You want to see someone break up at a fight at a bar? It's usually a guy who has his shit together and is really strong.
Totally true. But yeah. I was also going to say that I think fitness, I did a talk on this actually, I think, maybe you don't agree, that there's a correlation between how like being fit and success, because all the 100%. Disciplines it teaches you, like it teaches you patience, it teaches you discipline, it teaches you, you know, just so many different things about also being physically strong makes you more mentally strong and resilient. I can go on. And I think that most people I've spoken to or know, or my friends who are, and I say success, not just money, by the way, in life, is they do take their health and their fitness seriously to some extent.
If you look at Fortune 500 CEOs, the thing they have most in common is not where they went to school. It's not even their ethnicity. Something like 484 of the Fortune 500 work out 4+ times a week.
That many.
And they're finding all sorts of stuff about it. It's how useful it is for depression, your success. I mean, we're a very looks-y society, and obesity, it's going to hold you back. I mean, and we know this, but we don't like to talk about it. I find in culture on the far right, we weaponize vaccine and mass. For some reason, we decided science was somehow political. And on the left, to a certain extent, we've weaponized obesity. We don't want to have an open conversation about it because we're worried that we're fat shaming people. But the reality is, kids who are overweight are much more likely to be depressed, alone, have fewer economic prospects.
low
we need
self-esteem,
to-
low confidence.
well, depression. And we need to solve food deserts. We need to get people eating better, but also we need to celebrate fitness again. There was something called the Presidential Fitness Awards when I was growing up, and they decided that it was bigoted or prejudicial against kids who are overweight or not in good shape. I'm like, yeah, okay, but we should celebrate fitness. And the fashion industrial complex was telling women for 50 years to be anorexic. Now it's telling women to be diabetic. I'm like, when do they zero in on like a good human form here? And the same is true of women, but now more younger women are working out than men. But I mean, embrace your, I think a lot about masculinity, and I think a key component of positive masculinity is being really strong, such that you can protect others. Firemen and cops and people in our military are generally really, really strong. And I think they get a lot of confidence from that. And I think that you want to take advantage of it, especially while you're young, because when you get to my age, you're going to realize, you're going to look back and think, oh my God, the shit I could do with my body back then. And I'm glad I really tested the limits. It helped me professionally. It helped me emotionally. It's part of my process when I go into a dark space mentally. The first thing I do is sweat. I find it kind of resets me. I have a series of other techniques of things I do. I have kind of a pattern for trying to get out of a dark place when I feel depression coming on.
Like what?
Well, I have an acronym for it, SCAFA. The S is for sweat. Just sweat. Immediately sweat. Running, whatever it is, you got to sweat. That resets your system a little bit. The C is for clean. I try and eat clean. I try and cook at home a lot. I just find it grounds me. Just eating better, cleaner. Abstinence, not abstinence in the way you think of it, but abstinence from THC and alcohol. I love alcohol and